And good morning. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Happy Valentine's Day. Oh, do we have quite the Valentine's Day present for you today. Don't worry. He's legal. Barely. You might feel some things. Is coming up in a bit here on Twitter. We will unveil Griffin Bass's Tom Brady picture after he and Ken Zales tied as losers because they went with heads. Like idiots. It's one thing to lose. I need you to know that it's one thing to lose. You lose on anything else, like fine, whatever, it happens. I can't believe it played out exactly as I said. I wasn't going to let it play out for me.
So we would have tied with you, right?
Yes, so I would have also
had to
and John Proctor as well. If you guys had both picked tails,
I should just know there's going to be a defensive touchdown.
All four of us would be together in our underpants. Now I, of course,
we should have all done it together.
I didn't realize this. So my friend Dave Scher from K&S Automotive this morning said, "Hey, it's Valentine's Day. Why don't you get your boys' Hamden calendar, right?" And so I saw it up on Facebook, and I said, "Hey, man, make this shareable." Now, what I didn't realize is before he made it shareable, he added the picture of Stan and I, which I have said 1,000,000 times, I ain't giving away for free. You got to buy your calendar in order to get it. So not realizing that he had edited the post because he knew that I was going to share it, I clicked share, not realizing that I was doing the thing
that you said you wouldn't
that
do.
I said I would never do. No free tasters. No free samples. Nothing. You had to purchase. You had to buy the cow to get the milk. Man, I'm kind of mad at Dave. I do love Dave, and I'm not really mad at him, but like, dude, that was the whole point, is that you had to buy the calendar in order to see the pick. But that is what it is. It's nothing I can do about it now. He got me. He got me. But Griffin will have his Tom Brady picture go up on Twitter here in a minute. When is Ken planning on doing his?
I don't know. He just said later in the week.
We need to. That's a little dodgy. We need a more direct answer.
Slowly start putting the pressure on.
By the way, we're realizing that maybe everybody should just bet with Charles. I feel like Charles, ever since he came into our game, has been like red hot. I think he went 8-1, something like that.
Paul went 8-1. I think he went 7-2.
7-2 for Charles.
I'm looking right now. I was 6-3.
6-3.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I
went
Chris
6-3.
Stapleton a second from the push. Like, that's rough.
Oh, you were over.
I was over.
So, by the way, and that's a controversial one because there are other people. It's almost impossible, by the way, when you're getting into tenths of seconds, like exactly when you start. This is one of those funny.
We were looking at yesterday. It was at 201.9.
Yeah, it was like 201.9 was the number that we said DraftKings paid out at. So the difference between 201.9 and 202.1 is almost non-existent, right? Like that can be human error in the difference of 0.2 seconds. It's almost an absurd thing. The more I think about it, the more absurd I realize it is that we participate in the over-under on the national anthem because it's almost impossible. I know that we have very scientific like timing mechanisms, and that's what we use for like running the 40-yard dash, for example, out of the combine, because we act like the difference between somebody running a 4.3 and someone running a 4.6 is drastic.
It is,
right?
It
like
is, yeah.
If you run a 4.6, you can't be in this league. Dude, you couldn't tell the difference between a 4.3 and a 4.6 with your life on the line. You would say those guys are exactly as fast as each other. They're exactly. What's your 40 time right now, Charles? What would you run?
I haven't run a 40 since senior year of high school.
What'd you run?
I don't know, like 4.8, something like that.
That sounds about. By the way, very fast for any normal human. But if you ran that at the combine, it'd be disaster. Yeah. We'd say it's over. Charles is out. We couldn't possibly hire him in the NFL. We can't tell the difference. The moral of the story being, Charles did just well enough, as it turns out, to avoid having to join in on this punishment. So Griffin will unveil the picture in a minute. Also coming up this morning, it's Tuesday, Patrick Stevens will join us as he does every week. We will talk Maryland basketball after their win over Penn State. Of course, showdown with Purdue on Thursday night. What the hell's going on with Towson, man?
They don't want to finish games anymore.
What is happening there? They lose last night at William and Mary. That's no good.
William & Mary could not miss a three. They were like they missed
Ay.
one more three that would have been
Towson still got to look at the end of the game, right?
Like no, not really. They had like
they had the ball.
They had inbound. They were inbounding from the side of the court, so they had like a lob towards the basket.
Oh, okay. All right.
Like
I thought there was enough time left that they could have gotten a shot off. That was
like
the
0.8
thing.
or 0.9 on the.
I don't know why you were lobbing to the basket in that situation instead of trying to run a play to get yourself a shot.
Nick Timberlake gets up there.
That's enough for a turnaround shoot.
Yeah, right. That's a lot of time. I don't know. Whatever.
Either
Anyway,
Either
we'll
way.
talk about
they
that.
lost.
And a wild first weekend of lacrosse as well with Patrick Stevens. Our weekly NFL draft segment this week, Tony Pauline, Pro Football Network, will check in with us. Noted Led Zeppelin fan. We've been friends with Tony for a very long time. We'll get his thoughts on what the Ravens could do with the 22nd pick in the NFL draft. And speaking of the NFL draft, Mohamed Ibrahim, who's definitely not Mohamed Ibrahim.
Who thought it was that?
Everyone! Not happy about this. I'll tell the story later in the show. Including Glenn Clark. Thanks a lot, Gus Johnson. Baltimore native, All-American, all Big Ten running back during his career at the University of Minnesota. Set like every school record during the course of his career at the University of Minnesota. He's getting ready for the NFL draft. He's getting ready for the Combine first and then the NFL draft. We will catch up with him a little bit later on this morning as well. Him, but not Ibrahim, very different thing. I want to make that abundantly clear. By the way, given the connotation for the word him now, maybe you think about it. Remember, Joe Theismann was not always Joe Theismann. His actual name was Joe Theismann. But when he got to college and there was a trophy that was called the Heisman Trophy, somebody said, hey, Joe,
You should be
maybe you go ahead and be Joe Theismann because it rhymes with Heisman and maybe improves your chances of winning the trophy. And he was like, oh, you might be onto something there. And I'm not trying to tell it's somebody's name. I want to make it abundantly clear. They get to be what their name is. But maybe, given the fact that we're obsessed with the word him now, like it's all we come up with, maybe you think about it?
Yeah.
Maybe you consider that possibility?
So you've been onto something, maybe.
Maybe I'm an innovator. That might be what happened here. Anyway, we'll talk to Mohamed a little bit later on in the show. Looking forward to that. He's great. All right, today's show is brought to you by the Baltimore County Police Department. Today, right now, you can get over to Parkville, go to the Northeast Regional Recreation Center, and you can take your agility test right now and get yourself on your path to your new career with the Baltimore County Police Department. Cadet salary start at $32,000. I always say start at just because like you're trying to sell something and you make it seem cheap. It's not the way that you want to promote a salary. Because salaries are good things. So salaries for cadets start at $32,611. For lateral officers, over $64,000. For entry-level officers, over $60,000 with a $10,000 signing bonus available for entry-level or lateral officers. If you can't make it out today, big hiring event coming up on Saturday, February 25th at the Public Safety Building, 700 East Joppa Road in Towson. You can take your agility test, the written test. You can get through all the application process right there on site. They are hiring. Join BaltimoreCountyPD.com. Join BaltimoreCountyPD.com or 410-887-5542 if you have questions about joining the Baltimore County Police Department. All right, nothing significant news-wise yesterday. I know everybody's reacting to, apparently Washington's going to talk to Greg Roman. I hope that means that they know they're out on Eric Bieniemy. I hope that's the reason why suddenly they're interested in Greg Roman. I don't much care what Greg Roman does now. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but, he's not in Baltimore any longer, so why do I care? How does it impact my life? I guess if you're a Washington fan and you hear all of your Raven fan friends bitching about Greg Roman, you're probably not very excited about the idea of your team interviewing Greg Roman. But for what it's worth, Greg Roman was wildly productive. I know it's the part that we want to pretend like never happened here in Baltimore, and I get it, but he was wildly productive. And I'm not sure if you paid attention to what's going on in Washington, but they're not that. They're not productive. Everybody's like, yeah, he wins a lot in the regular season. They don't do that there. So maybe they say to themselves, hey, we'll take that. Now,
they got Sam Howell.
Yes, but that's also weird, right? Like, in all three of his stops, he's had a significant mobile quarterback, Tyrod Taylor, Colin Kaepernick, and Lamar Jackson. I don't really know what the fit would be with Sam Howell.
What pick is Washington? They get unless they go for Anthony Richardson or something.
I don't remember. Yes,
not that Anthony Richardson's obviously Lamar Jackson, but
no, but that's it'd be the mobile quarterback that would be available in the draft. I don't pay enough attention to Washington for the record, so I don't off the top of my head know. Hang on, Washington has the 16th pick in the NFL draft. So yes, they would not likely to be in the conversation for Young or Stroud, and Levis wouldn't fit this anyway. Anthony Richardson is by far the most he's the closest to any of these guys that we've talked about that's available in the draft, at least available early in the draft. They are publicly remaining very committed to the idea that Sam Howell is their quarterback. Again, as I said before, that's what they're going to do, because even if they want to be in the market for a quarterback in the draft, if they don't get it, then Sam Howell's going to have to be their quarterback, and they don't want to spend 3 months saying, yeah, we just really don't like that guy. Like, we don't think he can be the answer, and then have to turn around and be like, all right, Chief, go ahead, get out there. Let's see what you can do. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's what I talk about, people not being honest. They don't know. They might really like Sam Howell, but they also might like the idea of finding a quarterback too. But you just don't know if you're going to be able to get that guy. Maybe in their minds they are praying that Lamar Jackson is available, and Dan Snyder still makes the calls for now, and so he's willing to give up 80 picks in order to get Lamar Jackson. And so, I don't. That's a complicated situation. Again, I don't care about anything that's going on in Washington. But if they don't do that, then they're gonna have to turn around and say, "All right, Sam, go ahead, get out there. Let's see what you got." So I get why they certainly would not trash him or tell you that they were trying to do something else, knowing it's possible, no matter what, that Sam Howell might end up having to be their guy. Again, not my concern, and I'm not, just no disrespect. I don't care. It's Washington. Do whatever you want to do. We're worried about. We got plenty of our own things to worry about up here. We got plenty of things needing a coordinator ourselves. I hope the only impact that I hope it means that they're out on Eric Bieniemy, and that improves the chances of the Ravens ending up with Eric Bieniemy. I hope that there's some sort of connection between those two things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that whatsoever. The other news from yesterday regarding the offensive coordinator search that got everybody hot and bothered was the word from Josina Anderson. She said, I'm told Cliff Kingsbury had conversations Sunday with the Ravens about potentially joining their staff. However, those talks did not produce an imminent fit on timing and other factors at this specific time, per a league source. That's a hell of a word salad, right? Yeah. And I'm not trying to take a shot at Josina Anderson. I think she's reporting something factual. I just don't know exactly what the facts are that she's reporting.
Cliff Kingsbury in the building.
Cliff Kingsbury clearly, to her point, had a conversation with the Ravens. Was that a formal conversation? Was Cliff Kingsbury
from Thailand?
Presumably, well, I would think that maybe at this point he's back in Arizona, and the entire league was out in Arizona last week, so they bump into each other. Like, hey, what are you thinking about?
Someone
right?
Saw John Harbaugh and
was
Harbaugh out there?
I assume the owners all get together at the Super Bowl. So normally all of the coaches normally everybody involved with the NFL does at least something during the course of the Super Bowl week. It's very rare that a decision maker in the NFL doesn't at least make a cameo appearance during the course of the week at the Super Bowl, because there's just so much going on, and the entire football world descends upon one city. So the most likely scenario is they're out there, they're like, hey man, let's chat. But nothing about this tweet says, you would think if they interviewed him for offensive coordinator, she would have just said to fill their offensive coordinator vacancy. But she didn't say that. She said, I'm told Cliff Kingsbury had a conversation Sunday with the Ravens about potentially joining their staff. That's a vague sentence.
You see a lot of these advisors lately. Like
sure, right.
Offensive advisors, maybe something like that.
Alabama does it every year. They take somebody who got fired and they say, congratulations, you're going to be a consultant with us for a year, and they'll get you back we'll fix you and get you back on the path to whatever job you want to have in the future. Frankly, Mike Loxley, once upon a time, was someone who took advantage of that, and it completely turned his career around after a disastrous stint as the head coach out at New Mexico and got him back on the radar in order to become the head coach. He got the job he wanted all along out of his stint at Alabama, where he's able to come back home and be the coach at Maryland, where he's finding success. It's absolutely possible. After they heard about the Thailand story, they said, well, it's pretty clear the dude doesn't want to be a coordinator. But maybe he'd want a role. Maybe he'd want to be involved in some capacity, and we could find a way that maybe he doesn't have to be there on game days, or he doesn't have to – he could do it remotely. Whatever it is that Cliff Kingsbury is looking for, because we believe, based on the Thailand story, that he wants to kind of detach a little bit. So maybe we find something that could fit for him. I'm speculating, clearly. I'm wildly speculating, but it's just the vagueness of the tweet that leads me to speculating, because I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury was talked to about offensive coordinator, why Josina Anderson wouldn't have just said, the Ravens have an offensive coordinator opening, they talked to Cliff Kingsbury about it. That would be what I would report if that was the case.
Maybe this is something to, like, interest Lamar. Like, maybe just working with Cliff Kingsbury could, make Lamar more inclined to want to stay and stick around.
What would make that?
Because Lamar wants to be more of a passer, and Cliff Kingsbury had one of the most prolific passing offenses in college football.
But based on the relationship that we seem to see between Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, I'm not really sure what would be appealing.
Speculating again.
It didn't seem like they had the rift. Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. It seemed like Murray and the management.
Well, it definitely seemed like that was a more significant. But like everything about that situation was so weird, right? Like everything about it was so weird on so many levels. But I did not watch the Hard Knocks show.
It kind of gave a vibe of like the management didn't like what Murray was doing, but Kingsbury wasn't
all in.
Enforcing.
All right.
Like he didn't mind.
All right.
Not necessarily didn't mind, but like it was just one of those things where he was like, he's going to do what he's going to do.
Okay.
In the management.
Well, if that's the case, then maybe that's exactly what you're talking about.
You're
trying to find You're trying to find sort of a liaison for Lamar Jackson to appeal. Look, man, this is going to be your guy. You're going to answer to him. Once upon a time, when Cam Cameron was offensive coordinator in Baltimore, the Ravens would go through. Hugh Jackson was one. I believe Jim Zorn was another, and sometimes they were called the. All right, fine. But Lamar liked, but Joe Flacco liked him. Sometimes they would call him the quarterback's coach. Sometimes they would give him one of these other titles, consultant, analyst, whatever they would give them. And it was a very specific thing. Your job is to be Joe's guy. Your job is to work as the liaison, because Joe and Cam were, they didn't dislike each other in any way. They just didn't. They didn't have that type of vibe, and Joe really liked having someone that was kind of his guy. And so, yeah, that could absolutely be a similar scenario here where, dude, you be Lamar's guy. Just work with us with Lamar. Try to help the entire relationship between franchise and franchise player. We're in a delicate time right now. We could use that. So, yes, absolutely, it's possible that that's the story of the Ravens having a conversation with Cliff Kingsbury, is we want you to be some sort of in-between whoever the offensive coordinator ends up being and our quarterback. And your job is that relationship. I don't know if, again, to this word salad of a tweet, and I'm not trying to take a shot at Josina Anderson, who's a professional. It's so hard to parse this. However, those talks did not produce an imminent fit on timing and other factors at this specific time. There's 8 qualifications in that sentence. Did not produce an imminent fit, so could produce one in the future, but an imminent fit on timing. Wait a second. So
just not today or yesterday.
But doesn't imminent already cover that, or is it or does she mean by timing when he would start, or? Again, to the point that I brought up earlier, how often he would have to be there, is it a role? And other factors. What other factors? It's just at this specific time. Again, there's so many qualifiers in this sentence, I don't know how to parse through it. It's a lot. It's a lot, man. And again, Josina Anderson is a professional. I'm not trying to take a shot at her. I have put out some very wordy sentences and tweets in my life that I would go back and look at and say, what the hell was I trying to say there? Like, exactly what was I attempting to say? This is very much one of those tweets. That sentence, however those talks did not produce an imminent fit on timing and other factors at this specific time, your guess is as good as mine, Chief, as to what that sentence is supposed to mean.
She's professionally saying, like, Kingsbury just said, all right, I'll get back to you guys.
And by the way, that's what I think is probably that, like, she's trying to say, what she's trying to say is, he didn't say hell no. He just sort of said, I don't know.
Get back to you.
Right?
We'll see.
And I think there's a much better way of saying that, of conveying that message within a sentence than however these talks did not produce an imminent fit on timing and other factors at this specific Jesus, I get a headache just trying to read that sentence. I think that's what that meant, right? I think you're right, Charles. So we'll see. It's interesting. I would presume, I don't know how you go to somebody like that if you don't know who your coordinator is, though. Like, how do you have this conversation with Cliff Kingsbury and say, hey, would you come work with
someone
to be determined?
Well, I was thinking it's one of those things that goes hand in hand. Whoever their quarterback is or their situation is, Cliff Kingsbury can stay away and, like you guys said earlier, remotely, they can just send him the game film of who they're playing
if that's
week.
the role, right?
And it's just like, give us a couple feelers and hints and tips.
If the role is more of an analyst role, absolutely. If the role is more of a quarterback specialist role, then that probably wouldn't work. And that's the thing. We have no idea what that role would be.
But regardless, it benefits him because he stays in the game while still having a step back.
Presumably, right? Although if he's looking directly to get back into being a head coach somewhere, I don't know that you want to step all the way back to part-time analyst. Typically, if your priority is getting back to being a head coach, then you want to get back to being a coordinator as quickly as you possibly can, have a highly productive year, and then remind everybody that you're still capable of being a coach. I think it's a long shot for Cliff Kingsbury to get another NFL head coaching job anytime soon. I think, like, you would need to have – how long was Josh McDaniels between head coaching gigs?
When was his first one? Well,
8 years, something like that. I mean,
he almost got that Colts job, or I guess he did get the Colts job, but just didn't.
Josh McDaniels was head coach in Denver 2009-2010. So he went 12 years between head coaching gigs. When it doesn't go well in an NFL head coaching gig, look, it didn't go well for Adam Gase, and he was able to turn around and get another job immediately.
So, yeah, that's why I was immediately thinking. I think it goes more in the favor of the Adam Gase situation for Kingsbury, where he will end up getting another job.
I hear you, but everybody panned the Adam Gase thing. Like, typically when it doesn't go well, you don't immediately get that. It's more rare for the Adam Gase thing to happen than it is for when it doesn't go well, you to have to almost reestablish yourself as a coordinator. On the flip side, I think Cliff Kingsbury could get a college job tomorrow if he wanted one. And I mean a high-level college job. It didn't go well for Matt Rule in Carolina. He turned around and got a historic – I get it, Nebraska has stunk for a long time, but it's still a historic, place that matters where the stadium's packed every week. Nebraska football, as much as they've been bad, is still a blue blood type of program. And Matt Rule, despite his failures at Carolina, was able to turn around and get that job very quickly. If Cliff Kingsbury wants to go back to college, I don't think it matters what role he has. I think he absolutely this season could work part-time with the Baltimore Ravens and turn around next year, and I'm just speculating about what job would become available next year. If for some reason, God, who's on the hot seat right now? I don't even know. I don't pay it.
The Bear? Who's the Bears?
No, not in the NFL.
I'm
talking the college level. What's a college level job that he could turn around and get
anywhere in the
next year?
Pac-12?
Yeah, like I'm in
Colorado.
Jed Fish at Arizona, right? Like he's not really done much. If a year from now he's got another 4-win season, they just decide it's time to move on at the University of Arizona, Cliff Kingsbury would be at the top of the list of candidates for a major college coaching job. Even though he didn't have a lot of success as the head coach, and actually, ironically, in Arizona, right? Like, who knows if he just likes living out that way. I know Tucson's a bit far away from Phoenix, but, he might just say, hey, that's cool for me. I want to be there.
You don't think Texas Tech would take him back?
Like Texas Tech would take him back in a heartbeat. I just don't know enough about how Texas Tech is feeling at the moment. I don't even know who Texas Tech's
A&M's not happy.
Who is Texas Tech's coach at the moment?
A&M's not happy with Jimbo Fisher at the end of
I think
their
they
season.
for monetary
But they
reasons.
pay him a lot, yeah. So.
I think they might be stuck with him. Although I guess there's a lot of money at Texas A&M. They could probably always buy him out. Like there are a lot of wealthy people connected to Texas A&M. It
Who
is
knows?
possible.
He might be Alabama's offensive coordinator next year. So.
1,000%. Like I think a lot of people are surprised he doesn't already have a role at Alabama at this point. Like that's normally the way these things work. Look, I'm intrigued by the idea of Cliff Kingsbury being part of the Ravens staff because I think he's a good offensive mind, and I think the Ravens can use more offensive minds. But I don't know enough. I didn't learn enough in that tweet to get a feel for what that means for the Cliff Kingsbury situation. And even in an analyst role, if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, I would still want to know who the coordinator is before I would take that job. Even in a part-time, remote type of gig. Brian Billick did that with Arizona State last year. We've talked to him about it, right? Like where he went out there a couple of times, but he certainly was not full-time out there. He was doing analyst stuff for him. They were sending him things. He was looking at it and, giving his feedback and going over film, things like that.
Is that when Herm Edwards is still there?
Yeah, well, he stuck on even after they let go of Herm Edwards. But, yeah, Marvin was doing the same thing. Like, they were all friends. They were all involved. It was a neat story. Actually, there's a chance that Brian might stay on in that role. We didn't ask him about it last week because we had other things to talk about, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it's an easy role to have at this point in your life. Why not do something like that? And why wouldn't a place want to have one other set of eyeballs that's been a Super Bowl winning head coach just to look at ideas? Like, you're not making the decisions. You're just giving us some feedback, giving us some thoughts. I think even in that role, I would still want to have that answer if I'm Cliff Kingsbury. Like, okay, dude, but who's the coordinator? And if the answer from the Ravens is we're not sure yet, well, get back to me when you know, right? Like, talk to me in
timing and other factors.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me in a week, and we'll have that imminent answer at that point. And maybe they did. Maybe they said, well, look, it's going to be the enemy. We just got to wait a couple days. He's got to go do a parade. We got to go through all those things. And then Cliff Kingsbury said, well, let me talk to him, and then I'll get back to you. Let me figure out, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows how that played out? But it is intriguing. I have no issue with, that being explosive yesterday. It's a name everyone is familiar with. It's a thought-of offensive mind. And if Cliff Kingsbury is getting involved, you would think it's because he knows the Ravens do want to kind of change their offensive concepts a little bit. And I don't think that Cliff Kingsbury would want to be involved with the Ravens offense where they say to him, but we're going to run the ball more than anybody in the NFL. Like, I don't think that's – why would you be talking to Cliff Kingsbury about that? That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm trying to think if there was anything else in the last 24 hours that I felt like I needed to respond to. I feel like those are the two big ones from yesterday were the Greg Roman thing and the Cliff Kingsbury thing. This is that time of year where any tweet, because that's what we've got. That is what it is that we're talking about. All right.
Colts have a new head coach.
Well, yeah, but we knew that. Yeah. Like, over the weekend, we figured that out.
We did? That it was going to be Shane Steichen?
Yeah, they announced. Okay. They didn't announce it because they had to wait for the game to be played, but the reports started coming over the weekend that he was going to take the job, and that's why Brian Johnson. Remember, I said yesterday it was possible the Ravens were waiting on Brian Johnson through the Super Bowl, but the most likely scenario now becomes that Brian Johnson will end up getting the Eagles' offensive coordinator job, unless he just doesn't like it there and he wants out, right? In which case, let's talk. But you would think the most likely scenario is that Brian Johnson gets elevated to offensive coordinator in Philadelphia, and that would take him off the list of candidates for someone like Baltimore. You would think. Again, I'm speculating again. I don't know. Believe it or not, Brian Johnson didn't go out and have drinks last night to discuss this situation. But you would think that would be the case, that Brian Johnson would get the OC job in Philly, and he would be off the list of candidates for teams like the Ravens. Boy, who did the Jets hire yesterday? Oh, my God. It was one of the most only other thing I saw was the Panthers added Jim Caldwell to their staff. I love Jim Caldwell.
Frank Reich,
I love Jim Caldwell. So he's one of the obviously was the offense coordinator 10 years ago when the Ravens won the Super Bowl. Just a great, great guy. I actually heard our friend, as much as I like Jim Caldwell, our buddy Josh Charles sent me some messages about Jim Caldwell and personal conversations he's had with him, and I was like, wow, I like him even more now. The Jets hired someone yesterday, Todd Downing. All right, so Todd Downing, I know nothing about. But I was at the gym yesterday, and I'm watching the ticker on ESPN as I'm working out. And the ticker announcing that the Jets had hired Tyler Downing followed up with two things.
Pass game coordinator.
That's what they hired him for.
Yes.
But they followed up with two things. Was the Titans offensive coordinator when they went from 13th ranked offense in the NFL to 28th ranked offense in the NFL. And then the next, so you know how the ticker goes. Like, the first one is Jets hired, Todd Downing. Next, then they flip it. Next one says, was Titans OC as offense went from 13th to 28th. And then the next one was, and was arrested for DUI.
Oh, man.
And you're like,
so he was that guy with the Titans.
Yeah, I get,
okay.
But it makes you think that whoever was building the ticker was like a Jets fan.
Yeah.
That was just super
okay.
down on the idea of Todd Downing and just wanted to trash the poor guy. I would say poor guy. I mean, he did it to himself, whatever he did, but just was looking for a way to trash him publicly. It was one of the funniest sets of tickers that I have ever seen in my entire life. He replaced Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator last season. It did not go well.
So I'm reading up on a little bit of his history. He is the PFF Quarterbacks Coach of the Year in 2015. He was on the
PFF
He was the Raiders quarterback coach that year, and their quarterback was Derek Carr. He threw 8,000 yards, 60 touchdowns, 19 picks.
Look,
Does
man.
that set up a Derek Carr signing?
Oh, and
for the Jets?
Oh, that is an interesting. That's an interesting.
Well, that's what Rappaport tweeted yesterday. He was like, well, now they have Nathaniel Hackett.
Right,
who worked with
to
Aaron
go
Rodgers.
get Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
right?
And
Todd Downing to try to go get
Tannehill or Carr.
Right, yeah. Oh, boy. Could you imagine being a Jets fan and setting yourself up for Aaron Rodgers and ending up with Ryan Tannehill?
And then Robert Salah
could you just,
and Garoppolo, obviously.
All right, so they've got connections to literally all of them.
All the available quarterbacks.
Which just means it's going to be Zach Wilson again next year. Like, you just know how this is going to go. Like, somebody up front's going to say, well, we got to give him one more shot.
Somehow it ends up being Flacco.
Right.
Yes.
I think Joe might retire this offseason. I think it might be time for like when you're the.
I mean, people are going to keep giving him contracts.
I know, but when you're the third quarterback behind Zach Wilson and Mike White.
Well, that's because he was the second overall pick.
No, but behind Mike White,
they eventually benched Zach Wilson, and then he was.
I understand, but then they turned to Mike White. If you're behind Mike White on the depth
because
chart,
the Jets are trying to figure out if they got something in Mike.
They didn't have something in Mike White. We all knew they didn't have something in Mike White.
They do
Stop.
like once each season. So
stop.
His
we all
backups
know.
are good for 3 games.
I just feel like at some point you got to be saying to yourself, like, I mean, is it worth it still? Like, what am I doing? And by the way, I've always said I'm not knocking you if you just keep collecting checks.
Right.
Like, I will never knock someone that continues to collect checks. However, I will say, at some point, the argument is there's always going to be more money being a quarterback than there is doing something else. I don't know what that money is like for Joe Flacco any longer. It might not be more money than he could get doing something else at this point. So we will see. All right, do you want it? Let's go ahead and do it. This is the moment. This is what everybody's been waiting for. Today's show is also brought to you by, or just a reminder, the gambling can be fun, but you should set a limit and stay within it. And remember that if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Griffin was a loser. Actually went 5-4. He didn't have a terrible week. But it was a loser, he and Ken Zales, in our bet. And so because of that, the payoff is that Griffin had to take a Tom Brady-style thirst trap photo. Now, I was out last night playing trivia with John Proctor.
That's when I sent it to you.
When you sent it to me. And I walked back in from the You're not supposed to have your phone out. But I had happened to go to the bathroom. And I got the text. And I said, oh, that's really great. Like, that, really. And so I brought it back, and I showed John. And John was like, damn, he went for it. And I was like, we're really proud. Thanks. So what you did is you took the picture in like a dormitory room or something.
That's my bedroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like a dorm room.
Oh.
And then you attempted to set it with the background of Tom Brady on the
tropical islands.
Right. Like you attempted. The problem being there was a Shutterstock watermark.
Well, I thought that was kind of the bit. Like it was just that it was so fake.
I get what you were thinking, and I really appreciated the effort. I did appreciate the effort. Like Griffin went way beyond anything I would have done in attempting to put the picture on a Tom Brady background. We decided to just send out the original. Like, and I ran it by Proctor too to see what he thought, and Proctor said, "Yeah, I think you just run the actual picture.
Okay.
I said, that's what I think, too. Are you nervous at all? Because we're going to understand. We're going to be pinning this to our Twitter for 24 hours. For 24 hours, if somebody goes to twitter.com/GlennClarkRadio, they're going to see you in your underpants.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, no.
Grabbing
I don't
your
know.
junk.
Yeah. No, I was just covering.
Yeah, I mean, but there's not really any difference there. You at all worried about, like, you know, a potential employer seeing this? You all worried
I guess
about?
I should be.
You should be, for sure. For sure. Look, man, I posed nude, and I'm still employed by a Jesuit school, so I don't know what's going on here.
So I guess no, not really.
Okay.
I mean,
You're comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. You know.
But I mean, I think you look good, buddy. By the way,
Thanks.
I think
Hey,
this
thanks.
is. I think you should feel good about yourself. I think that this one is one that you might get a couple phone numbers out of this. Maybe.
Fantastic.
Maybe we send this one to old Dixie girl. Maybe we send this one to.
Just DM that one straight to her.
I think
Yeah,
I will.
that's
I think I might pass this
You're gonna
along
do
to.
that.
Oh, I
Oh,
think I
man.
might pass it along to old Dixie D'Amelio, who we learned that Griffin is a fan of.
Yeah, I mean, I
so.
guess I got another Tinder pic now, so that's.
There you go.
yeah.
There you go.
Maybe I'll use the Shutterstock one.
All
For
right. You want to go ahead and get it up on Twitter?
yeah, sure.
All right. Let me know. Let me know when
All
it's
right, I'll do that.
posted, and then we will grab a break here. As Griffin is indeed.
Oh, actually, it might take a minute. I got to relog
Yeah,
in.
you might.
I got to relog
oh,
into
for
our.
God's sakes! All right, we'll do it during the break.
Yeah.
All right. Here's what we'll do. We'll take a break. When we come back in, the picture will be posted for all of you to enjoy. Happy Valentine's Day from us. Griffin doing his Tom Brady thirst trap, and it will be available for 24 hours and then deleted. Not just unpinned, deleted.
Thank God.
All right? It's gone.
Got to get your screenshots.
It disappears from the internet forever. So you got 24 hours to enjoy this photo of Griffin. And by the way, again, remember, he is legal. He's legal. I promise. You might be a little confused when you look at it at first and say, no, I promise you, he's legal. Everything's good here. All right, so enjoy the photo. When we come back in, we will talk some Terps, some college hoops, some college lacrosse. Patrick Stevens joins us as he does every Tuesday. That's next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our annual Best Of issue. On the cover, we recognize Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman as our 2022 Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and he sits down with us to discuss how his arrival in Baltimore was simultaneous with the Birds' turnaround. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of the year throughout the local sports scene. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at over $60,000 and over $64,000 for lateral officers, with $10,000 signing bonuses available. Plus, cadets start at over $32,000. Great benefits are available like medical, dental, and vision insurance, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days per calendar year with no limit, career advancement to more than 20 specialized units, and more, with further incentives for military service members and veterans. A passion for service, a career for life with the Baltimore County Police Department. Find out more at joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. Must be a United States citizen, have a valid driver's license, and a high school diploma or GED equivalent.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/pressboxonline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know what's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
I'm going to talk some college lacrosse here in 1 second with Patrick Stevens. Did you know that you can bet on college lacrosse this season? Bet $5 and get $200 in instant bonus bets when you go to PressBoxOnline.com and sign up with DraftKings. This is your chance to have fun and make a few bucks betting on your favorite college lacrosse teams. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. PressBoxOnline.com/offers, and click on the DraftKings link to get your $200 worth of lacrosse bonus bets. Get signed up right now. It is a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio, and let me double-check right now. I can confirm Griffin's Thirst Trap photo is now available and pinned at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter for you to go check it out right now. That's a pretty good Tom Brady right there, my friend. That is not bad at all. 24 hours at 10:42 tomorrow, we delete it eternally. It will be gone. Gone, daddy gone, the love is gone. That's the way that it will go. It's Tuesday, so that means we're going to talk some Terps, some college hoops, some college lacrosse with our friend, college sports guru. You follow him on Twitter at Discourse, D1S Course. You read him in the Washington Post and USA Lacrosse Magazine. He is our buddy, Mr. Patrick Stevens, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Patrick, what's going on, sir? Always good to catch up.
Good to talk.
Hey, I don't normally this time of year begin the conversation with lacrosse, but what a weekend it was this weekend. An awful lot going on. Specifically in terms of Johns Hopkins and Loyola, how much do we say, boy, we have really learned something early on in the season versus saying it's one result, maybe we don't read into it too much just yet?
Well, it is one result. And I think the one thing that I take from it is maybe we're going to have a year where we have these sorts of surprises, where we don't really know everything, right? Like, think about the last 3 seasons in college lacrosse. Like, there was barely enough time to work up a lather in 2020 before the season got canceled. So, like, that's almost a complete wash. And then in 2021, I mean, the results were nice, but, think back to 2 years ago, we were just thrilled when we saw games getting completed. Like, the thought wasn't, well, what happens if this happens? Right. It was, can the games just be played? And then last year, it felt like Virginia and Maryland were a tier above everybody else. And then Maryland blasted Virginia, and things kind of took on a sense of inevitability that was never really shaken until about the last 5 to 10 minutes of that game on Memorial Day, when Maryland basically sputtered to the finish line and had just enough to get by. And so, maybe this is a year where we really didn't know all that much going in. I think we talked a couple weeks back with Charlie Toomey, and I asked, does this feel like 2012 a little bit, where everybody's kind of overlooking you? Maybe that's the case. Certainly, I think you take away from Saturday that Luke Stout played really, really well and backed up,
no doubt,
that faith that Charlie Toomey had in him. I think when you look at Hopkins, a 1-goal victory over a good team at home. Okay, that's a good step forward for them to go with that victory at Jacksonville to open the season.
Which looks a little bit better, obviously, with their win over Duke.
Which looks a little bit better with their victory over Duke. So, I think for Hopkins, you're looking at them as, I don't know if I'm willing to pronounce that team as back or anything, but I think they're better, and I thought they were going to be better. I believe what we were talking about was, what could they be? And there was kind of an upper range to that it certainly seems possible that they might be in there. Defensively, they're clearly better after what we've seen over the first couple weeks. So, they play tonight against North Carolina this afternoon, 5 o'clock at Homewood, and that'll be a fun game to see and kind of see how they deal with that quick turnaround before they head off to Loyola come Saturday. But I think both of those teams certainly appear to be better than maybe we were giving them credit for, but it's still early.
Right.
At the very least, what we would definitely say is both of those teams have victories that are probably going to hold up pretty well over the course of the season. And that's a good thing to have, especially if you're Loyola, quite frankly, because the league doesn't help you quite as much as Hopkins.
That's a great point, and obviously it sets up for what could potentially be a pretty electric Saturday coming up this week between Loyola and Hopkins. All right, let's get into basketball. I don't know that there's a lot to take away from Maryland's win over Penn State. I brought this up with Len Elmore yesterday because he was on the call for the game. I don't know if you noticed this on Saturday, Patrick, but it was the first time it jumped out at me that it felt like Maryland was purposely running more sets where whoever was running the offense, whether it was Jameer Young or someone else, was running it from inside the three-point line, like almost as if they were kind of acknowledging their deficiencies and saying, we need to do something different. Was I crazy in thinking that was something, or did you notice a little bit of that too?
I think there's some of that, but I also think some of that's probably opponent specific too.
Okay.
When you look at Penn State, they're playing Pickett at the 4. I mean, Pickett's a tough, good guard, but he's not your traditional 4-man by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure.
And they had Lundy out there in kind of a 4-5 type thing. Miles Dredd, another one of those guys. Like, we can keep going down the list of guys that were kind of technically forwards the other day, but not really, right? And so, I think that for that particular matchup where Penn State wasn't going to trot out a whole lot of size, it made sense to do that.
Okay.
And I think too, so I think there's probably, I think that's even better, frankly, for Maryland, that it is such a opponent-specific thing as opposed to, well, this is just sort of a dogmatic, this is how you're going to go about your business and this is how it's going to be sort of thing.
That's an interesting point, right? Like that they were so prepared for any particular opponent that they had that idea in mind. This brings us to what, is maybe not the showdown of a number 1 matchup with Purdue having lost to Northwestern, but it is probably the biggest game of the year in College Park coming up on Thursday night. And I would think that, again, as human as Purdue has looked, including when Maryland held them to 58 points despite a disastrous start on the road, I don't know that I could say that Maryland's going to win this game on Thursday night, but I think they have a very real chance of winning this game on Thursday night, right?
Yeah, and it actually reminds me a little bit, early years, might have been the first year that Maryland was in the league when Wisconsin came to town with Kaminsky. And it's like, oh, well, Kaminsky's going to just roll over them. It does, even though, and they didn't, obviously, Maryland won that game. This doesn't quite feel as overwhelming in a lot of ways, even though Purdue is a highly touted team with legitimate Final Four aspirations like that Wisconsin team was. And they're also a team that has a 7'4" guy. Well, obviously Kaminsky wasn't 7'4", but an imposing guy in the middle in Zach Edey. So, ultimately, I think at the very least we're sitting here looking at Purdue and saying, well, they've lost their last 2 road games. And if you go back and you look at their other games, recently away from home, they won by 5 at Michigan. They destroyed Minnesota, which everybody seems to be doing. They won by 1 at Michigan State on MLK Day. They won by 2 at Ohio State. They beat Penn State by 13 at the Palestra. I mean, they won in overtime at Nebraska. It's not a great it's a good enough road team to win games, but it's not a team that's just marching in places and demolishing people. And it hasn't been doing that all season. So I would fully anticipate a tight game come Thursday night in College Park.
Patrick Stevens is with us here on GCR. Is the assumption that Maryland's best chance is to try to replicate exactly what they did on the road, to try to keep this game around 60 points, and you live with Zach Edey getting his, it's the way it's going to go, but if Julian Reese can do enough on the offensive end against Zach Edey, you're going to feel you have an opportunity to win the game?
Yeah, and I think the other part of that is can you bottle up those freshman guards?
Yeah.
And when you go back and you look at what happened the first time around, that's basically what happened. I mean, you look at Fletcher Lawyer, you're happy to let him have 7 points on 3 of 9 shooting. You're happy to let Braden Smith, go ahead and get himself his 8 points all at the foul line, stuff like that. When you run down that list, you're content to let Edey get his. And if he kills you on the glass, well, that's just sort of a price of doing business with the roster that you have this season. But I think that if you're Maryland, you at least have something of a template to work with that you can say, this has had some level of success. The thing that you don't want to have happen if you're Maryland is to spot Purdue a double-digit lead early and then have to play from behind like you did the last time.
Right.
It looks good on paper that you lost 58-55 in West Lafayette, but the truth of the matter is that you had to play catch-up the entire game, and that really is not what you want to be doing.
I would assume that, like, Hakeem Hart's career high, the 23 points, you would say that probably is more about the matchup that you just sort of laid out than it is that, like, Hakeem Hart has found some sort of special sauce and is ready to be a 20-point scorer every night the rest of the season.
I don't think that's what's going on, but I do think that I do agree with what Kevin Willard has been saying for much of the season, which is that if Hakeem Hart is engaged and playing well, Maryland's probably playing pretty well as well. So, I mean, they're 3-0 when he's gotten to 20 points this season. Now, granted, that's Coppin, St. Peter's, who he had his actual career high against a couple years ago, and Penn State. But when you look at some of those games, they're in their first 6 losses, he was in single digits. So, the 2 times that they've won when he got to double figures were 11 against Purdue and 12 against Michigan State. So I do think that he is a vital piece for them, but we're probably not going to see him be the central figure in the offense again. That doesn't mean that he won't be a guy that's dishing it out a lot, because I think that's something that they've really kind of latched onto and really like here over the last few weeks, starting with that Wisconsin game when he had the career high 8 assists.
You don't happen to have his plus minus in front of you by chance, do you?
I do not have it in front of me.
It's just an interesting, based on those numbers that you're like, that he's had his best games and wins, his worst games and losses. It'd be interesting to know what his plus minus is. But I guess there's so many guys that are playing so many minutes. I don't know how drastic they can be when you're a team that's as thin as Maryland is this season. On the local front, tough week for Towson. Obviously, I don't know that any of these things are disastrous. It's not like they're getting blown out or anything like that, but clearly not the type of results that you're looking for to try to clinch one of those top seeds.
No, and I spent a fair bit of time thinking about Towson last night after I was driving home from a Maryland Eastern Shore Howard game in D.C. And the thing about Towson is that when you go back and you look at what they've done in league play, they have had a chance to win all but one of the games that they lost. They're 9-5 in the league, but in that Charleston game, they were actually tied with 15 seconds to go in overtime, and they were also ahead with 20 seconds left in regulation.
Yeah.
In the Drexel game, they were up in overtime with 2 minutes to play, and let that game get away. When you look at last night, they were ahead going into the final minutes. And so you kind of run through all this stuff. Only the Delaware game, they played well against Hofstra up there. That was a game that they had a chance to win. And so you feel like they're not that far away. You also feel like there isn't an adjustment period coming to not having Jason Gibson, because that's basically been the way that it's been almost all season. They have games where, when you look at, for example, against Drexel, where they basically got almost nothing from anybody other than the main 3 guys they have in Cam Holden, Nick Timberlake, and Charles Thompson. They got a total of 13 points from everybody else in that game. And you go, okay, well, maybe they need to spread it out. And then last night they spread it out some, and Ryan Conway had 11, but Nick Timberlake shot 1 of 9 from the floor and had 5 points. The bottom line is they just don't have as much margin for error as they thought they were. And I think that when you're seeing them losing, particularly a game like last night to a second division team in William & Mary, that's a significant concern. And like you alluded to, the race at this point for them is get a top 4 seed and at least only have to play 3 games in 3 days. And the fact that they still have to go to Wilmington and to Charleston in the other order, it's Charleston and then Wilmington to close out the regular season, is going to make that tougher. If they had simply handled Drexel the other day, they would be in such better shape right now, just because, Drexel is that team that's chasing them for the 5th spot. I mean, if I give you Towson at 10-4 right now, and Drexel is at 8-7, you got to like your chances of being able to get 2 of those, or even just 1, and hope that Drexel stumbles one other time and you're good to go. But I think if you're Towson, you now have some work to do, starting Thursday at home against Delaware. You get A&T at home on Saturday. And then at this point, you might have to go win one of those road games on the last weekend of the season to go get that bye into the quarterfinals in the CA tournament.
Anything else on the local hoops front that we need to cover, Patrick?
Well, let's do a quick little tour here. UMBC won a couple games last week, so they're back into that mix. They're 7-5 in the America East now. They have a sweep of Bryant, which is a pretty good thing to have, and they're tied for third with Bryant and UMass Lowell. So, I think that they are only a half game back of Binghamton, so they still have a chance there to get up to the number 2 line in the America East. So a good sign for them to be able to do that. A good week for Navy as well, who's now tied for third in the Patriot League after completing its season sweep of Army. The Mids have won 4 in a row, 7 of 8, and if they can pick off Lehigh, the schedule gets kind of favorable the next couple games. They get Loyola at home, and they go to a fading American team. I think Navy has a chance to get itself to second place in the Patriot League, which would mean 2 home games potentially before a likely, not guaranteed, but a likely trip to Colgate, which has already clinched the Patriot League's top seed, which is pretty impressive to be talking about that with 2 weeks left.
Yeah, they've only lost 1 game in Patriot League play, right? Like they've been nuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that had snapped a 26-game conference winning streak. So, and they've responded to that by beating Lehigh by 28 and Bucknell by 20. So, Colgate not taking kindly to having any sort of vulnerability shown there. They're still the clear-cut favorite.
No doubt about it. All right, guys, I am aware that the Adam Schefter has reported Todd Monken's the guy for the Baltimore Ravens. I promise we're going to talk about it here in 1 minute. The Ravens have their new offensive coordinator. But before we do that, let's play our game. Can Patrick Stevens name the MLB teams that this particular player has played for? I've got a pair of shortstops for you this week, Patrick. I will go first with a man whose one All-Star appearance admittedly was not in the city where I would have assumed that it would have been. He went on to become a manager. He is currently working as a coach for the Atlanta Braves. 4 teams for 2-time World Series champion and former Rookie of the Year Walt Weiss.
Well, Walt Weiss was definitely in Oakland, and he was definitely in Florida, right?
Most certainly was. The Florida one I had no memory of. It was one season in 1993. Was he in the expansion draft?
And yeah, I think he was.
Okay.
Colorado and Atlanta, the other two?
There you go. 4 for 4 on Walt Weiss. I always think these are going to be trickier, and it turns out I'm wrong. Not tricky at all. So Jose Reyes was the other player that I had prepared for this morning. Jose Reyes, also 4 teams.
All right. Well, I think I can get 3 of them fairly easily. He was a Met.
Yes.
And a Marlin and a Toronto Blue Jay for sure.
Most certainly was. And then he finished 2015 somewhere else before coming back to the Mets.
Before coming back to the Mets,
yes,
right?
He was traded in July of 2015, finished that year, and then re-signed with the Mets as a free agent.
Oh, was he a Cub?
Not the Cubs. I don't know why I remember this. You want one more guess at it, or do you want me to just tell you?
No. You can. I'll just be throwing darts at this point. Who was it?
The Colorado Rockies was the other spot for Jose Reyes. What's the schedule look like for you this week, sir?
Well, I'll be at Homewood here later this afternoon in a game that suddenly looks a bit more interesting. And then tomorrow, GW and George Mason, the second game of the season. Maryland and Purdue hoops on Thursday, and then Saturday going to do a double dip along Charles Street. Hopkins and Loyola lacrosse at noon. Towson, North Carolina A&T basketball in the afternoon, later in the afternoon, and then Sunday, making my way up to Mount St. Mary's to see them play Canisius, and then Monday will be Morgan State playing host to Howard on the last MEAC Monday of the season in Baltimore. There's one more after that, but everybody's on the road, so might be worth.
Yeah, it might be time.
Might
be time for me to make it my way over. You're absolutely right about that, sir. All right, at Discourse D1 S Course on Twitter is how you follow him. Always appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday. All right.
Awesome, Glenn. Take care.
Patrick Stevens with us as he is every week here on GCR. Yes, Todd Monken is the guy for the Baltimore Ravens as their offensive coordinator. the first question that comes to mind is, why'd you wait so long if it was going to be Todd Monken, right? Like, that's the first question that comes to mind is, was there someone else that you wanted that you weren't? Like, I hate that that's where your brain goes instead of just talking about Todd Monken, but your brain definitely goes to places like, were you trying to get someone else? And they said, hey, definitively, is Lamar Jackson going to be my quarterback? And you said, well, we don't know that. And they said, well, then we're not interested. And I'm not trying to create some sort of conspiracy theory, but you could have hired Todd Monken whenever you wanted him. I don't know how else to read into it, no offense, that this wasn't your first choice. Todd Monken was available to be had. Successful offense coordinator at Georgia. Let's be very clear about this. I don't think Todd Monken's a bad hire by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's an intriguing hire. But it's very difficult to separate yourself from how did we get here? Who else did you want that made you want to wait in order to hire your coordinator? And why didn't you end up with them? And to be fair, it could be the other way around, right? It could be that they finally got to talk to whoever it was, Eric Bieniemy, Brian Johnson, whoever they were waiting for, and they said, we don't think this is the right fit. Or maybe it really was that they were waiting out Brian Johnson all along, and the moment that Shane Steichen ended up getting the Colts job, it kind of took them out of the running for Brian Johnson because he just wanted to be the Eagles' offensive coordinator. There are other scenarios that are unrelated to Lamar Jackson by which they could have ended up defaulting to Todd Monken. But you can't help it. You can't help but start doing the math in your head of, you interviewed him, you liked him, but not enough to hire him. Why was that? And given the timing of it, the most likely scenario is that it was related to someone who was coaching in the Super Bowl. Why didn't it work out with them? And it's very difficult to separate the thought that one of them, whoever it was Eric Bieniemy, said, yeah, I'd love to come to Baltimore. I'm going to be working with Lamar, right? And the Ravens said, probably? And he said, what do you mean probably?
That Star Wars meme of Padme where she's like, right?
Oh, yeah,
right?
100%, right? And like the eyes. Yeah.
And then just Anakin Skywalker.
Like you just can't. I don't like doing wild speculation. I don't like being that guy. But there is an amount of attempting to do the math that's involved with this. There is an amount of I can't separate this. You like Todd Monken, fine. But if you really liked him, you didn't have to wait this long. Todd Monken wasn't coaching in the Super Bowl, to my knowledge. He didn't get one of those Vic Fangio 2-week jobs, right? Like, he didn't get a consultant's gig for a couple of weeks. God, imagine Vic Fangio came in for 2 weeks to try to help out with the defense, and they got cooked in the second half. Their worst performance of the year.
That's what everyone was pointing out. Like,
right?
When he was with the Broncos, the Chiefs destroyed him.
Yes. Why was that the guy that you would want to bring in? You like Todd Monken. You can call Tony Pauline whenever we're supposed to call him. I don't know what you can call him. Tony Pauline, we'll ask him about Todd Monken. Tony covers the league and certainly has seen what Todd Monken's been doing at Georgia in his role as a scout. You like Todd Monken. You talk to him. You say, yeah, that could be our guy. But not yet.
Hey, Tony, it's Griffin.
And why
Radio in Baltimore.
and what happened with whoever else it was that you were interested in.
Sorry, we're a little late. We're reacting to the Ravens.
That's what
Thank you.
That's just the part that I can't shake from this. I can't. Todd Monken, obviously things went well at Georgia the last couple of seasons. Previous to that, he had been in Tampa as offensive coordinator. He had his first offensive coordinator experience all the way back in 1998 at Eastern Michigan. He had also been offensive coordinator at Oklahoma State and head coach at Southern Miss. He is very qualified. I'm not down on Todd Monken, and probably someone that fits what we know traditionally the Ravens to want to be, a team that believes in running the ball and believes in playing AFC North-style football, not dramatically going to suddenly wildly become a team that's ready to throw the ball 60 times a game or something like that. Probably a good fit schematically with the personality that the Baltimore Ravens as a franchise have had over the years. But there's another side to this story. Why did they wait till now to hire Todd Monken when they could have had him previously? What else happened here, and what might it tell us about Lamar Jackson? Don't know. Not trying to skip 2 steps in the process. Just know that's part of the conversation. All right, into hour number 2 of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. It is time for us to have our weekly NFL draft segment. We're going to actually ask him first about Todd Monken. We have been chatting with this man for years here on GCR. You see him at Pro Football Network or wherever you find anyone listening to Led Zeppelin at the moment. He is our friend Tony Pauline, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Tony, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's always great to catch you up. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us, as always, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Just wanted to see if I could get your reaction first. Todd Monken is going to be the Baltimore Ravens' new offensive coordinator. What do you make of the hire?
I mean, I don't know. I really haven't been following all that much, but all I'll say is if he could do for Lamar Jackson what he did for Stetson Bennett,
right?
I mean, it's worth its weight in gold. Don't know that that's going to happen, but, you know, I mean, Stetson Bennett, walk-on, average arm quarterback, really got him to play to, you know, an incredibly high level. If he can, you know, the Ravens are able to keep Lamar Jackson. He's able to polish Lamar Jackson's passing skills. Well, you know, that's worth its weight in gold.
You know what? I like the sounds of that, by the way. And, of course, as you would imagine, literally everyone on Twitter is already saying Stetson Bennett to the Ravens confirmed. That's, of course, the follow-up to all of these things.
In the first round, no doubt, right?
Yeah, exactly right. It will make all the sense in the world for where you would go about doing that. All right, Tony, let's start with this for you. You, of course, you cover everything. Tell me who it is that has changed their reality the most between Shrine Bowl week and Senior Bowl week. Tell me who the prospects are that have most significantly changed their reality heading towards the Combine next.
Well, I think Dewan Jones came in and had 1 day of great – he only practiced for 1 day, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. First day of Senior Bowl practice, and he was phenomenal. I mean, we all knew him as a big, mauling, suffocating run blocker, but he showed a lot of skill in pass protection. He showed the ability to slide off the edge and handle, speed rushers with ease, which that was the big question mark about Dewan Jones. And he did that incredibly well, got his hand, it did a great job of it, and it was one and done. I guess he felt he did such a good job of it, he didn't have to practice the rest of the week because he practiced Tuesday, and we didn't see him the rest of the week. So he really helped himself. Tyjae Spears proved, the running back from Tulane proved, he is the real deal. I mean, everything you see on film, he has those skills. He's got great quickness, great speed. He was a phenomenal receiver out of the backfield during Senior Bowl practice. He was running routes like a receiver, so he really helped himself. Sidney Brown, sort of in the Dewan Jones mold. Everyone knew him as a tough run-defending safety who had some cover skills. I mean, his ball skills were as good as many of the cornerbacks during all 3 days of Senior Bowl practice. So he helped himself. Shrine game, I thought Ketrell Clark, the corner from Louisville, a little bit small, but really did a great job for 3 days, just kept getting better and better and better. A.T. Perry, the receiver from Wake Forest, he was unstoppable. The only guy who was able to slow him down was actually Ketrell Clark, but for 3 days, A.T. Perry looked phenomenal. So I think those are just a few of the guys, a handful of the guys who came out of Shrine Week and Senior Bowl Week with better draft grades than when they went in.
Tony, you're never going to believe this because you and I have never talked about wide receiver over the years here in Baltimore. It's never been a position, but believe it or not, we're talking about wide receiver once again here in Baltimore. Where are you? Like, it feels like there's a lot of differing opinions. I had thought that the 3 guys that everybody was consensus being the top 3 guys were Jackson Smith and Jigba, Addison, and Quentin Johnston, but I've talked to more folks who maybe aren't as high on Quentin Johnston and maybe are higher on Jalen Hyatt or even higher on Zay Flowers or Booty from LSU. Where are you as far as these top 5, 6 maybe receivers in the draft, and who legitimately you think could be in play around the 22nd spot where the Ravens are picking?
Yeah, well, I think that's more indicative of a very weak receiver class.
Okay.
When you have that many variety of opinions. Now, my top six are Jackson Smith-Njigba, closely followed by Quentin Johnston, then Jalen Hyatt, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, and Kayshon Boutte.
Okay.
I don't think that any of them are going to be top 20 picks. I think most of those guys will be still on the board when you get to the bottom third of round one. Jackson Smith-Njigba, phenomenal in 2021. The game film screams, wow. The game film from 2021, Jackson Smith-Njigba had a higher grade than C.J. Stroud on my board, but he barely played last year because of the hamstring issue.
Sure.
So, he's got to prove that it wasn't, a one-off thing. There's a lot of question marks there. Quentin Johnston, big, strong, fast, explosive wideout, runs terrible routes, doesn't always catch the ball that well, does a lot of body catching. Jalen Hyatt, a guy who's a great vertical threat, but he's got a limited route tree, and he's fast in a straight line, but when he's going to make a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn, it's, the situation changes. Jordan Addison, a bit of a smaller guy, a real good route runner. But again, he's not a real speedster. Same thing with Zay Flowers, Boston College. I mean, he's a guy who went to the Shrine Game, had one solid day of practice. I guess he feels that his draft stock is cemented in the top 45. But he's a smaller guy. We got to see what he runs. He told us he's going to run a 4.3 at the Combine when we interviewed him at the Shrine Game. Real good pass catcher, but I mean, the guy's barely 5'9", 182 pounds. Boutte is the sort of the question mark. He's the unknown here. I don't think Boutte's going to go in the first round, but I think Boutte has shown flashes the past 2 years of being a terrific NFL receiver. And the one thing we know about receivers coming out of LSU, they are usually better on Sunday than they are on Saturday. And Boutte's got that type of ability. He was just very inconsistent, especially at the beginning of the 2020 season.
Tony Pauline, Pro Football Network, is with us here on GCR. Tony, if the assumption is that what the Ravens are missing is that stretch the field type of receiver, based on what you just said, do you think there's a chance that Hyatt makes the most sense? Or would you say, hey, look, if all of these guys are on the board, you can't just take the guy because you think it's what you need. You got to go get the best football player, and that's Smith-Njigba.
Hey, Hyatt's a good receiver. He's just not a very experienced route runner. He doesn't have an expanded route tree, but he is a phenomenal vertical wideout. I like him much better than, say, I like Hollywood Brown a couple of years ago when the Ravens took him. And he is that kind of guy that, is going to put fear into defensive backs, into the heart of defensive backs when he steps to the line. So it's a question of, are you going to be able to teach Jalen Hyatt to run those underneath routes, to run those crossing patterns and catch the ball? He's a good vertical threat. With Jackson Smith-Njigba, I'm sure he's going to run very well. I'm sure he's going to run in the 4.3 area. And I'm told, I reported a couple weeks ago, he is healthy and he is geared up to work out at the Combine. The thing is, they really didn't have him run too many deep routes at Ohio State. And like I said, it was one and done. I guess it depends on, when I watch Lamar Jackson, he's a great vertical receiver, a very good vertical passer. It's some of the underneath stuff that he has problems with. So maybe you're better off putting more vertical receivers on the field.
That's an interesting point. Is there anyone outside of that group that you say, I'm not trying to, like Christian Watson and George Pickens were high picks, right? Like, let's not pretend like they were later guys. But is there anyone outside of that group that you look at the receiver position and say, this is a guy that's not being talked about in the top 6, but is legitimately someone who could be an impact player in their rookie season in the NFL?
I like Josh Downs of North Carolina in the second round. He's a guy who is a real good pass catcher, and he's a vertical threat. I like Cedric Tillman of Tennessee, a bigger, stouter receiver, not your vertical threat. Jaden Reed is a guy who was real good for Michigan State in 2021, had kind of an off year last season, as did the entire Michigan State program, but looked really good at Senior Bowl practices. If you want a true vertical threat and he's going to go later in the draft. Later meaning probably maybe late third round, maybe fourth round. Nathaniel Tank Dell of Houston, who had a great Senior Bowl week. I mean, runs crisp routes. He's a vertical threat. If he's given the slightest bit of open of space, he's gone. But he's 5'8", 5'8 and a half, 163 pounds. So, you're going to have to line him up in the slot. You're going to have to line him off the line of scrimmage and get him away from press coverage. But if you're looking for a guy that, his teammate Marcus Jones had a major impact this year as a return specialist, and Tank Dell's got that same return potential, I should say. But he is a definite home run hitting threat at the receiver position.
There are, in the last decade or so, there's been a few University of Maryland wide receivers that have been kind of overlooked leading up to the NFL draft and have done pretty well for themselves. There are 3 of them in this year's draft. What do you make of that group of Dante Demas, Rakim Jarrett, Jacob Copeland?
Demas, the big thing for him are the combine medicals because,
Sure.
2 years ago, before he hurt himself, Demas looked like, he was a definite day 2 pick. He is a well-rounded receiver. He's a bigger guy who's quick, who's fast, but you've got that specter of that significant injury. And even though he played pretty well last year, it's a different beast when you undergo combine medical. So that will dictate the thing with Dante Demas. He may be a guy that is downgraded or red flag because of the medicals, but if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be a real good receiver at the next level. I think Jacob Copeland is very underrated, solid size, solid speed, consistently comes away with the reception. I like him a lot. I think Jacorian Bennett is a little bit overrated. Doesn't run great routes, doesn't always make the catch with his hands, doesn't do the fundamental things all that well, but he's a size speed guy. I think all those guys you're looking at midday 3.
Okay. All right. Very good. He is Tony Pauline at Pro Football Network. He is with us here on GCR. Tony, if I could, the cornerback position is another one that jumps out. We don't know what Marcus Peters' future is in Baltimore, and we have seen the Ravens have been committed to the idea of building from the outside in defensively and strengthening from the secondary. The most fascinating name to me, and I'm more and more convinced that he's not going to get there the more folks that I talk to, but Joey Porter was maybe the most hated player in the history of the Baltimore-Pittsburgh rivalry because of the cheap shot he once took on Todd Heap. Is there any world in which this delicious scenario could play out where Joey Porter Jr. is in the mix for the Ravens at 22?
Not according to my board, because Joey Porter is my number 1 rated cornerback. He's got excellent size. He's a physical corner, like his dad was a physical player. He's fast. He's shown a lot of ability. Needs to polish his game. I'd be surprised if Joey Porter makes it outside the top 15.
So who could be in the mix around 22 at the cornerback position?
Well, I mean, maybe Cam Smith of South Carolina, Christian Gonzalez of Oregon. I like DJ Turner of Michigan, although he's a little bit smaller than people want. And, you talk about Maryland players, Deonte Banks. Would they take Deonte Banks that early? Deonte Banks is a big physical specimen. He is a terrific cornerback. The instincts kind of concern me with Deonte Banks, but, if you're looking for a guy that's over 6 foot tall, that is physical, that is fast, that's got solid ball skills, that's Deonte Banks. He's got a lot of upside. May not be able to play in a complex defensive scheme, but if you're looking for somebody to run down the field with the receivers and basically just knock away passes, he can do that job for you.
It's so funny you say that. Like, I was having a conversation with someone in the NFL recently, and they said to me that they have a first-round grade on Deonte Banks. Like, do you think it's possible that he could rise to that point in this conversation?
Absolutely. I mean, there are positions of priority. Everyone talks about the quarterbacks, but teams want to see left tackles, and there's not a lot of left tackles in this year's draft, defensive linemen are solid, and cornerbacks in the first round of the draft. And you go back, I mean, some of the bigger surprises in the bottom half of round 1 have been cornerbacks. There were a couple of years ago, there were 6 cornerbacks selected in the first round. 2 of them turned out to be busts. I believe 1 is in prison right now. I think it's absolutely possible that you have 6 cornerbacks go in the first round of the draft, with Deonte Banks being that 6th player at the position who's selected in the top 32.
It's really fascinating. All right, let me knock out 2 more with you really quickly, Tony. You brought up cornerbacks. I sure as hell hope we're not talking about quarterback. I hope that the Ravens get something figured out with Lamar Jackson, but I feel like we can't be dismissive of it. If the Ravens end up in the quarterback market, tell me how good the guys are at the top. If the Ravens make a trade, how high do they have to trade in order to get one of those top guys? And is Anthony Richardson even worthy of the conversation as being somebody that could be your quarterback of the future if you don't trade up high enough to get one of the top guys?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't take Anthony Richardson in the first round. Could he be your quarterback of the future? Yes. If you have a great quarterback coach and you're willing to sit him for a year, if not 2 years. I mean, Anthony Richardson has some phenomenal talent. He's got great physical skills. He throws some beautiful passes. But at times he looks like a pedestrian playing the quarterback position. He is that awful. So, he is at both sides of the spectrum, which means that, if you're going to take him, you better be very patient with him, and you better have a great quarterback coach. I mean, could he go the first round? Well, yeah, Tim Tebow went in the first round, and so Anthony Richardson can go in the first round. If they're looking, again, like you said, it depends on what happens with Lamar Jackson. I really don't see any of these guys, except for Bryce Young, ready to be first-year starters. I think they all have a lot of holes in their game that need a lot of work. C.J. Stroud, Will Levis of Kentucky, he's all over the place with throws. He stares down the primary target. I happen to like Hendon Hooker of Tennessee, but he's coming off a major knee injury. And Hendon Hooker could actually be in the best spot of any quarterback in this draft because he's not going to be able to play for that because of that knee injury. He's got a great amount of talent. He's just gotten better and better transferring from Virginia Tech to Tennessee. You saw what he did this year at Tennessee. He's got an arm. He's accurate. He's smart. He's a great leader on the field. And, by virtue of the injury, he's going to have to sit on the sidelines and absorb a lot of things. So, you know what? If it's not in the first round, you come back around in the third round. If you can get Hendon Hooker and he's going to have to sit, I mean, in my opinion, that is a great play.
The scenario in which they're planning on tagging Lamar Jackson but not still convinced that they're going to end up signing him long-term, that is a very appealing conversation to have, although it'd be more appealing to me to just have Lamar Jackson. That's a conversation for a different day, Tony. We're actually about to chat with Baltimore native Mohamed Ibrahim here in a second. How does he fit in? It was so wildly productive, but he's also going to be 24 years old here in a minute. Like, where do you fit Mohamed Ibrahim as far as the draft is concerned?
Yeah, and we got to interview him at the Shrine game, and he was one of the best interviews. I mean, if you talk about a guy that you just want in your locker room, that would be Mohamed Ibrahim. As far as where he fits, I don't think the fact that he's 24 is a big issue. I think the fact that he's a smaller guy, he's not super fast. Caught the ball well during Shrine game practices, although he didn't catch the ball all that much at Minnesota. I think if you are in the late rounds and you're looking for a third or fourth running back, you're looking for that guy that could spell the starter on occasion, coming in certain situations. He's your guy. He's just the type of guy that you want in your locker room. He is so much of an upstanding person. I was so impressed with the 5-minute interview we did with him. And we didn't just talk about football. We talked about P.J. Fleck and other things.
That's cool.
He was phenomenal. I hope he gets drafted. I hope he has a long future in the NFL, if, in fact, that's what he wants.
Well, I'm looking forward to chatting with him here in a couple of minutes. Tony, what all can we plug for you, my friend?
I have no idea. I guess the Combine's coming up soon, so just go to Pro Football Network. There's always something there. We will eventually have some 800 scouting reports up there. We'll have a lot of our interviews from Shrine Bowl, including the one with Mohamed Ibrahim, so you'll get to see firsthand what I'm talking about after you listen to him on your show. And I guess now that the Super Bowl's over, everyone's going to be concentrating on the NFL draft, so we will have tons of information at Pro Football Network on the draft, as we do 12 months a year.
No doubt. At Tony Pauline, of course, is how you follow him on Twitter as well. Tony, always appreciate these conversations. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning, man.
Thanks for having me.
Tony Pauline with us here on GCR talking some NFL draft. By the way, today's show is also brought to you by Griffin. You got to remember to hit mute on your microphone when you pick up the. I'm not trying to knock you, but we just gotta clean that up. I apologize. I actually put away the print issue of Press Box because we're preparing for the next print issue of Press Box. Of course, this one is still available for another day or two with Adley Rutschman, our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, on the cover. But then it will be gone, making way for a new print issue which features Gunnar Henderson of the Baltimore Orioles, the number one prospect in all of baseball, but only technically because he's not going to be a prospect anymore after about 30 days. And then hopefully he'll just be a rock star and helping the Orioles towards the playoffs this season. Gunnar Henderson is on the cover, profiled by Luke Jackson. That's coming in a couple days. So go get this one while you still can at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of those hundreds of locations around town where you find press box. A couple of thoughts. I'm not, again, I hate that I'm thinking so much about the other side of the Todd Monken thing and not spending enough time just talking about Todd Monken, right? And, I'm hearing from people that have different opinions about these things. John in Little Rock, I like the hire based on his wealth of experience at the highest college level. And the NFL, let's make that abundantly clear. Todd Monken has been an NFL coordinator. How successful of an NFL coordinator? But he at least has the experience. I think the Ravens did an exhaustive search and took their time to make their final decision. I believe in the release that they put out, they kind of played that part of it up. This was more about, doing their due diligence and, how many, people they hired. I think they said something like, quote, this is from John Harbaugh. We conducted 21 interviews with 14 candidates throughout a thorough process that had wide-ranging organizational involvement. Todd's leadership and coaching acumen were evident from the beginning. He has a proven track record for designing and teaching offensive systems that allow players to succeed at the highest level. We're excited to get to work and begin building an offense that will help us compete for championships. And if you want to just take it at face value, it's totally possible the Ravens were never zeroed in on anyone involved with the Super Bowl, but just wanted to say, hey, let's at least get to the point where we can have that conversation. The dirty secret is they probably knew those answers before the Super Bowl. And then the only part that would be the wild card would be Brian Johnson, right? Like the only part of this that you could create where you could say, here's what might have messed with them, is if Brian Johnson, the quarterback's coach in Philadelphia, was really the guy they wanted. And that's the guy they were really waiting for. And then the Shane Steichen thing screwed everything up because Brian Johnson would say, look, man, I like you guys, but I'd just rather be in the position that I'm comfortable in. Unfinished business, whatever you want to call it. If that's the case, then you can absolutely separate this from Lamar Jackson. That they wanted somebody and couldn't get them because the part, again, that it keeps running through my mind is Bieniemy, right? Like, if you're Eric Bieniemy and you're leaving Kansas City because you feel like you have to get out from the shadow of Andy Reid, you don't want to go somewhere where there's any confusion at all about who your quarterback's going to be. You're thinking this is a pit stop to you becoming a head coach. So your interest is not, let me go somewhere where I might have to deal with Geno Smith being my quarterback next season. No offense, Geno Smith obviously had a good season, and frankly, Dave Canales, their quarterback coach in Seattle, ended up being on the radar more because of Geno Smith. But I want to know that I've got the dude. I've got the guy.
You guys have a Pro Bowl going quarterback. Got a Pro Bowl
Tyler Huntley. Thank you, Charles. Thank you. Appreciate that. Nailed it. Dynamite.
What? It counts.
Yes. I mean, for the rest of his life, he will forever be able to say, "I was a Pro Bowl quarterback." 4 touchdowns. Yes. All right. Enough. If I'm Eric Bieniemy, I need that answer. So the concern would be that that's what they were waiting on was Bieniemy. Bieniemy says, "Look, in order for me to make this jump, I need to know about Lamar." They say, we think he's going to be here, but we can't promise you that. And Eric Bieniemy says, "Unless you can promise it to me, nah, I ain't doing this." Okay. Now where do we go? Well, Monken was the guy that we liked the most. I don't know that's the case. And again, the Brian Johnson scenario, which has been brought up by a couple people, TC, probably needed to see how potential hires in the Super Bowl shook out. Maybe they were interested in Brian Johnson. Yes, the Brian Johnson scenario is the one that's less concerning because it's about him, not about them, right? Like, that if that was the guy that they wanted. But again, Adam Schefter, for as many people that report things that you wanted to be dismissive of, Adam Schefter is not typically someone that you're going to be dismissive of. Adam Schefter a week ago said the Ravens were interested in Eric Bieniemy. Why isn't it Eric Bieniemy then? Because if Todd Monken was the guy that you wanted, you could have had him. You didn't have to wait. If Eric Bieniemy was never interested in leaving or never interested in coming to Baltimore, you didn't have to wait until after the Super Bowl to get that answer. That answer could have come. So what changed? And maybe it's a better offer for Eric Bieniemy, right? As I pointed out yesterday, maybe tonight we'll find out that Washington was prepared to give him an absurd amount of money to become a coordinator. Seems weird given their ownership situation, but again, a lot of people believe that it's already known who the next owner is going to be. Maybe the next owner is already calling the shots in Washington. And if it's, say, Jeff Bezos, he has no shortage of money. Could do whatever he wants to do. You want $30 million to be a coordinator? Come on, let's do it. Kim, I believe they will have Lamar Jackson under center next year, but I also believe that they're not going to stress if they can't keep him under center after next year. Monken, I'm sure, has his own guys that he feels like he could work with. He's worked with plenty of them. Maybe, right? Maybe this.
Baker Mayfield's available. He was the OC for the Browns in 2019 before Stefanski started calling plays.
Man, I don't know enough about to do what? You're going to make Baker Mayfield your starting quarterback?
That's a connection that Monken has.
I understand that, and that would be a good argument for why Baker Mayfield could be a backup quarterback here. But committing to Baker Mayfield as your answer in the year of our Lord 2023? I mean, what are we doing? Is that where we're at?
Might be.
Well, for Monken, I feel like it's probably one of those things he doesn't well, of course he minds who the quarterback is, but he doesn't necessarily mind coming from Georgia, where
yes, if getting back into the NFL,
they don't have a tradition of having.
But there's a drastic difference in being able to compete with a less than top level quarterback in college football and being able to do it in the NFL. And again, the answer might be that Todd Monken says, well, "I just want to get back in the NFL," right? I'm not sweating anything. I'm willing to come here no matter what the quarterback situation is because I just want back in the NFL. I'm itching to get back. It could be as simple as that. But to pretend like Todd Monken is enough to overcome not having a quarterback in the NFL, I mean, get the entire F out of here with that. I like Todd Monken. But Todd Monken is not so much more brilliant than every other mind in football that he's the guy that could beat Patrick Mahomes with Derek Carr as his quarterback next season. Stop. I mean, we're just saying things at some point. All of this, I hate the fact that this is where my mind's going. I wish I could just, DB is trying to sell the idea that it's about Todd Monken. He had multiple job offers, and he was the one that waited to pick the Ravens, and he did it because he knows he's going to have Lamar Jackson. It's a charitable way of looking at it, man. I guess in a perfect scenario, that's what the answer is, right? This has nothing to do with who the Ravens really wanted. This is only about Todd Monken waiting and taking his time before he decided which job he was going to take of the jobs that he had in front of him, and wouldn't have taken it if he didn't know that he had Lamar Jackson. It's certainly a way of considering it. What it actually is, who knows? Who knows? We will do some more Todd Monken-related coverage. We'll reach out to some folks. Why don't you attempt Eric Zier here if we could? I mean, I don't know what his schedule is. If he could do it before the show's over, we could do it now. We can always move Mohamed Ibrahim. Why don't we check in with Eric Zier here during the commercial break, or we try for another day. I know he's a busy man. All right. Today's show also brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour, which returned early in the week. Aberdeen Ironbirds GM Jack Graham joined Stan and Ross Grimsley. If you missed it, find it at Facebook, or last night that was. Find it at facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. We'll continue to talk about Todd Monken. We are going to catch up with Baltimore native, University of Minnesota running back Mohamed Ibrahim as well. That is all on the way as we continue on a Tuesday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
There's something for everyone this February at Laurel Park. Come watch live horse racing every Friday through Sunday and join us on Saturday, February 18th for the Winter Stakes Spectacular featuring 6 stakes races and $900,000 in purses, including the General George and Barbara Fritchie Stakes. The fun doesn't stop there. Stick around for our Winter Mardi Gras celebration with live music, delicious food and drinks, and a carnival atmosphere. Plus, don't miss out on President's Day holiday racing on Monday, February 20th. Visit laurelpark.com for more info. That's laurelpark.com for more. See you at the track.
Another Orioles season is in the books, and the Bat-Around was there every step of the way as the Birds posted their first winning season in 6 years. And after promoting 2 #1 overall prospects in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Mike Elias has said it's liftoff from here. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and along with my co-host Zach Goodman, we'll be here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon all off season, discussing every signing, trade, and waiver claim as we navigate the cold winter months that lead to spring training. You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And if you miss a show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So tune into the Bat-Around with Paul Valley and Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
Not the only news this morning, Todd Monken being the new Ravens offense coordinator. If you're a Bruce Springsteen fan, you're probably very happy that Bruce Springsteen is going to be basically living in Baltimore here in 2023 after playing at the arena when it opens the next couple weeks. I mean, it opens with the CIAA tournament here in like 2 weeks. Next week? Is that when it opens? God, it's soon. It's very soon that the new arena will make its debut. And then Bruce Springsteen will play the first concert at the new arena, but he will be back in Baltimore. And this has been kind of a poorly kept secret. I know a lot of people in my circle I've talked to about this for some time, that the Orioles had an agreement with Bruce Springsteen. We now know the date. It will be in September 9th. Bruce Springsteen will play at Camden Yards, so a busy fall of concerts. Of course, Bruce Springsteen at Camden Yards, and then Billy Joel and Stevie Nicks are playing next door at M&T Bank Stadium. Unfortunately, for the younger people, no Taylor Swift, no Beyonce, none of the kind of marquee.
It's like they don't care about us.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. It's not like these are bad shows. If I were you, I would,
yeah.
try to take in one of these shows. I'm not. I already said I'm not going to end up going to Bill. I mean, like, unless something happens or somebody gives me. I've done the bit where I've spent a bunch of money on these guys before, and they're not. I'm just out on it at this point. I'm out.
You saying they're bad performers?
No, not at all. I've seen Billy Joel 10 times, something like that. I'm just sort of. It's at this point like the amount of money that it costs to go to a concert any longer. Like it's got to be something. Paul McCartney last summer was worth it because I'd never seen Paul McCartney before. I was going to spend an absurd amount of money on Paul McCartney because it was an experience I'd never had before. I've seen Bruce Springsteen 5, 10. And again, I enjoy Bruce Springsteen. He's very good. It's just I don't need to spend that much money again on Bruce Springsteen. I can do something else with that, and that's what I will end up doing. But I know it's a big deal for a lot of people. Bruce Springsteen coming twice to Baltimore now, this year as he will be at Camden Yards in September. And also this morning, I think even more significant news than either of the other two, we finally have a date for the final season of Ted Lasso.
Oh, we do?
Yeah,
What was the date for that?
That is very good news for everybody involved. Ted Lasso, we have been waiting, and it feels like we've been waiting an eternity. It feels like we waited a year and a half for Season 3 of Ted Lasso. March 15th is the date, so
nice.
It's coming in just a month, the final season of Ted Lasso on Apple TV+. So pretty big news this morning, besides just Todd Monken being the
busy
Ravens
Tuesday
offense
morning.
coordinator. It is a very busy Tuesday morning. Today's show is also brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. So many great deals available at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Bet $5 with DraftKings. Instantly get $200 in bonus bets for this weekend's big game. Get this and other great sportsbook promos and specials at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. All right, we had to do this a little bit earlier on because of his schedule, but we had the opportunity to catch up with a Baltimore native and one of the best running backs in the 2023 NFL Draft, Mohamed Ibrahim, right here on GCR. Let's continue our coverage of the NFL Draft here on GCR. Joining us now, a native of Baltimore and a man who set all sorts of new records during his career at the University of Minnesota. He just had an excellent week out at the East-West Shrine Bowl, and now he's getting ready for the NFL Combine. It's a pleasure to welcome in Baltimore's own Mohamed Ibrahim to GCR. Mohamed, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to catch up with you, man. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate that intro.
Absolutely, dude.
Happy to be on the show.
Mo, we've been watching you from afar. Admittedly, wishing that maybe you would have been a little bit more recruited here at Maryland, but that's a conversation for another day. Can you just sort of take me through? Let's go back. How about we go a ways back, right? Like growing up here as a kid in Baltimore. I know you ended up at Good Counsel, but can you take me through? Like, was there a moment in your life that it like first struck you? Like, dude, I might legitimately have a chance to turn this game that I like playing into a way that I go about making a living?
Yeah, I would say it started pretty young. I played on the Woodlawn Falcons out in the Woodlawn area, and we had a pretty decent team. And just seeing the success that we was having out there, just seeing just how I ranked up against everybody in like Maryland, Baltimore area, I was like, okay, I think I can do it. And then I played for the Hamilton Tigers.
Sure.
My 8th grade year, and it was like unlimited. Like it was no weight limit. I was like, oh, these big guys can't really hit like that. And I was like, oh, I think I can really do it. Like it's time to turn it up a notch.
Was it when you didn't have like the most stars in recruiting, when you weren't getting the attention other guys were getting, was there ever a moment where you doubted yourself? Like it wasn't a certain thing that you were going to end up in the Big Ten. Like not all of your offers were coming from major programs. Was there ever a moment where you're like, I don't know, maybe it's not going to happen for me the way that I thought?
Yeah, I didn't set myself up pretty well. I think that it was all on, the reason why I didn't have a lot of stars was my fault. So it was just in God's hand. I just put it in God's hand and took it day by day. At the end of my recruiting process, it got kind of hectic. I didn't really have that many offers. So we were just reaching out to different people. And then, Coach Fleck took a try on me, and I was like, I'm not going to let you down. It was one of those situations. So, I left it in God's hand. I wasn't panicking. And, when it came down to it, I think that God put me in the right situation.
Yeah.
And it was perfect.
The rest, they would say, is literally history, considering all of the records you broke at the University of Minnesota. Baltimore's own Mohamed Ibrahim is with us here on GCR. By the way, first of all, is it all right if I call you Mo? I know a lot of people in your life do. Is that okay, or is that for people that you're close with?
No, you can call me Mo.
Okay,
that's no problem.
All right, we'll go with Mo. Mo, how did your upbringing here? And I know, like, your family, you are one of the more interesting stories, I think, in the entire NFL draft. But, like, how did your upbringing here help shape you for getting yourself to this point and being on the cusp of an NFL career?
Yeah. So I moved to Baltimore when I was in the 3rd grade, and moving there, it just showed me a lot of, hardship, stuff like that. And then when I was out there, we had it was pretty fun actually. All the things we did as a kid, it was like a lot of activity, stuff like that. But I think it was one event that really changed my life, and it was at a young age. We was living in an apartment complex, and it caught on fire. We had a hard time. My mom had to work double shift, stuff like that. We was hotel to hotel, and we was just trying to get on our feet. But throughout that whole situation, my mom was never putting her head down. My mom was never complaining, stuff like that. She used to come home and she was always have a smile on her face. So it taught me through adversity, you got to continue being yourself, continue having faith. And you can see that throughout my whole career. When I didn't have no scholarships, just always having faith that things are going to be okay. God have a plan for you, and just keep being yourself. Don't let the hard time humble you, stuff like that. And then with the Achilles injury, not listening to all the outside noise, stuff like that. That all came back to that situation where I leaned on my mom, and my mom always gave me great advice and stuff like that. So Baltimore shaped me as a man at a very young age. And it carried on throughout all the different situations I was going through.
Wow, it's powerful to hear you say that. Like losing a year of football maybe pales in comparison to not knowing like where you're going to be sleeping at night, right? It's you got to keep perspective in those moments. Let's talk about that, right? 6 years in college, and obviously you were primed for a huge 2021, and to get out at that point and go on and make that jump. When you get hurt, when you tear your Achilles, do any feelings of doubt creep back in? Do you have any moment where you say, oh my God, I was this close, and is it going to be the same afterwards?
Of course, you have those feelings. You hear all the news outlets, you see all the all the hype coming up to the season, and then it happens the first game, and it's like, what could have been? You never know what could have been, and then you hold your head down, and then you realize it's not that serious. It's just a football, it's just a football game. That's where I had to humble myself and bring myself back down to earth. It's just I had to humble myself and just understand that it's just a game. But it helped me shape my life to see what I actually want to do outside of football. And I seen how important football was to me when it got taken away from me. And that was my first year I didn't play football. So it kind of hurt, but it showed me that, hey, it's a better life out there outside of football. And now I know I want to coach. I want to be a coach out there when my time playing is done. So like I said, God always has a reason for me. Everything that I always go through, it always showed me some. I was hurt for a year. I was showing the young guys what to do, stuff like that. And then it showed me hey, this coaching thing might be for you. Beforehand, I used to always tell my mom, I don't want to be no coach. It's not me. My mom was like, you would be a great coach. And I'm like, nah, that's not me. That's not me. And then I got hurt, and it was just yeah, that's definitely me. My mom seen it before I could see it. But,
wait, have you already adopted have you already adopted any coach speak? Is there a phrase that you said you're like, oh man, now I sound like a coach?
Yeah, you pick up a few things. Just being a coach, just always repeating yourself. You just out there saying the same thing. So you pick up little things that you like.
I mean, I completely. Some coaches are a little bit too corny for me, Mo. That would be a bit much. But some of them, when you find one that's real, man, it's really special, and I certainly think that'd be an amazing way for you to go. But clearly, you've got a lot to do football-wise before that point of your life. I understand that.
Right.
You come back after the torn Achilles. You take the 6th year. Were you nervous at all about, and I'm sure you're already dealing with it, that people are looking at you and they're saying, dude, you're 24, you're old, right? Like that's the way that, it's sort of the reputation for guys that spend that much time in college get coming into the NFL. Did you worry about all of that, and how important was it for you to show, not just the production, but what jumps off the page at me is the yards after contact this season to show to everybody, dude, I'm not feeling anything related to the injury whatsoever.
It was so when I got hurt and I was making that decision on if I should come back or not, I talked to a lot of different people. I got connected to a lot of different people, and the big thing was nobody ever came back from Achilles. Nobody. It was saying no running back ever come back the same. I thought that my plan was still in motion. I thought that I could still go to NFL. I thought that everything I did in the past can still show that I'm a great football player. So, come November, I start having these big boy conversations. I put on my big boy pants, and I'm having these conversations, and they're like, nobody can come back from an Achilles, and you're not going to get drafted. Nobody's going to draft you, and if they do pick you up, they're going to run you down to the floor to see how the Achilles does. So then I was like, okay, so my floor is I'm not getting drafted. So it's either I don't get drafted 2021 year, or I come back and let's say I don't get drafted again. Did I give myself the better chance? So now I'm weighing my options. So it's like, okay, if I come back for another year, I can show people my Achilles don't hurt. I can show people that I'm a football player. I can play through it. I can show people that it don't bother me. Or I can go right now and don't have no faith in it, just going out there and just not really having faith in it. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show people I can play on the Achilles. It don't bother me. I'm good. So yeah, that was my plan. So I decided to come back. And everybody was just like, hey, you can work your way back into the draft. You can show people how great of a running back you are. And I think that's exactly what I did. So
mission accomplished, I would say.
Mission 100% accomplished.
Mission accomplished. I wonder if, in a way, as we're chatting just another few minutes here with Mohamed Ibrahim from Minnesota, Baltimore native, with us here on GCR, I wonder if, in a way, it's part of your sales pitch to NFL teams at this point that you're more prepared to make the jump immediately, that you wouldn't maybe need quite as much of an on-ramp as some guys would, given your age, given your experience, given everything that you've been through, that you feel like you're a little bit more ready to be impacting on the field next season than maybe your average rookie would be.
Yeah. I'm 23 right now, so I was just like, hey, I took that as that was gonna be my rookie year. I took that last season I just had hey, that's my rookie year. I showed y'all what I could do.
Yeah.
It was basically a coming out of the pocket moment. It was just hey, I showed y'all what I can do. Just have faith in me. So that's how I looked at it.
I mean, my man, it couldn't have gone a whole lot better. I know that much. It couldn't have gone a whole lot better. Mo, obviously, the Ravens have spent a lot of time scouting at the University of Minnesota the last couple of years. They've gotten to know some dudes. I wonder if Rashad, if Daniel Fa'alele, if those guys at all reached out to you over the course of the last couple of years, tried to ask you questions about hey man, I'm headed to your neck of the woods. What should I know? Who should I go see? I just wonder what your relationships were like with those guys.
Yeah, so I'm older than both of those guys.
It's so funny, right? It's so funny.
Yeah, so I seen Rashad come in. I seen Falele come in, and I had a great relationship with both of them. Those guys, they both came in at a young age, started playing very early. I got really close to Rashad Bateman. Me and him was real close. We still are real close. So anytime he has questions or anytime we're talking and stuff like that, I always ask him how Baltimore is and stuff like that. He loved it out there. So, and then Dan, me and Dan was actually close too. But we're more on the gaming side. We play games together,
That's
stuff
cool.
like that. So,
have you allowed?
So
I mean, like, do you let yourself dream at all about, like, your story's amazing already. Dude, if this story culminated with you putting on purple and coming back home, it would be one of the truly most incredible stories in Ravens history. I know you're excited, like, wherever it's going to be. I understand that part of it. But do you allow yourself to dream at all about, like, what that would be like if it were the Ravens and you were back home and, you know, with a bunch of dudes you already know, like, sharing an offensive room with? Do you let yourself think about that possibility at all?
Yeah, you know, it goes through my mind quite often. You know, I had in the athletic room at Minnesota, it was like a lot of different fans in there, and you know, just seeing the situation that the Ravens was in with the running backs. Was it this year or last year? But
when everybody got hurt, right?
And stuff like that. Yeah. So it was just like, hey, like, you never know, like, they might pick you up, and there was always like a running joke inside of our locker room and stuff like that, because I was a huge Ravens fan in the locker room. So, you know, it comes up every Sunday when y'all play, stuff like that. So, you know, I would love to going back to Baltimore. It would be like going right back home to the Owens Mills area, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, I would love to come back to Maryland, but, you know, it's in God's hands. You know, just seeing what the next few months look like, you know, it's all question marks.
Is there anyone in your family that it would be particularly difficult for if it were to be Pittsburgh? Like, is there anyone, a friend, a family member, someone that you're close with that you know they're such a fan that, like, they're going to root for you, but it's going to be tough as hell for them?
Yeah, my personal trainer, so he raised me basically. He like on the football side, like, we worked out together and stuff like that. He was a huge Ravens fan, and if I put on the black and yellow, he'd probably won't talk to me for a while. But but I know it's all love.
Dude, you know, we take things very seriously around here. It's the way that it goes.
Yeah, definitely.
Mo, I guess let me wrap with this. Whether it's the Ravens, whoever it is, what are they getting when they call Mohamed Ibrahim's name in the NFL draft?
They're going to get a hard worker, consistent type of guy. You know, he's always going to come in, do his job. You know, if he come in as a role player, you know, and the starter goes out of the game and he runs into the game, you know, okay, I can count on this guy. He's going to do his job. He's going to do more. He's going to chase me down the field. He's going to help the play out. He's going to squeeze everything out the orange. That type of guy. And if I come in as the starter, it's going to be somebody that they can rely on. Somebody's going to go out there and make plays. Somebody's going to go out there and just help the team, you know, win, get a championship, stuff like that. Like, you're going to get a great guy in the locker room, not just a great football player, but a great guy in the locker room. Yeah.
We like the sounds of that here, man. You know what we're rooting for, but we're gonna well, you know, it is what it is. Mo, where can folks around here be giving you a follow? Twitter, Instagram, anywhere? How can they sort of keep tabs on you as you're going through this entire process?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Mo Ibrahim Ibrahim Jr. My Twitter is _. I believe it's _Mo, Mo Ibrahim Ibrahim, and those are two social medias I mainly be on.
Mo, I'm really, what a career you've already had, right? The accomplishments, amazing, all Big Ten, all American, everything, but seriously can't wait to see what's next for you. You are very much making everybody back this way proud. If it's Baltimore, we can't wait. I mean, it would just be the most incredible story. If it is Pittsburgh, please don't be offended by what we say about you on Twitter. We promise it's not personal. We don't mean it. Congratulations on everything. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Thank you, brother.
That's Mohamed Ibrahim, and definitely not Mohamed Ibrahim. I don't know what idiot would say that. All right, so just a quick pull. First of all, awesome. You know, Tony Pauline nailed it. What an incredible, you know, young man he is, and easy to root for. So I have this personal rule around here that even when we think we know somebody's name, I'll give you an example, right? Like, we've had Danon Hughes on a billion times, Chiefs color analyst, does baseball for the Big Ten Network. So for any number of reasons, when the Ravens have played the Chiefs, when the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl, when he's worked, the NCAA tournament baseball-wise the last few years, we've had Danon Hughes on the show. But every time we do, before we have him on, I say to Griffin, or whoever was producer in the past, reconfirm. Danon, not Danon, right? Like, reconfirm when you bring him up. Because it's a professional thing to do in radio, to make sure that you get it right.
He's easy with it, too, because as soon as you call him, he's like, this is Danon.
Well, then you go.
Yeah,
there you go. So you have that
nice
taken care of. But it's a professional rule. Young Charles should learn this, right? Like, you want to get everybody's name correct. As a broadcaster, you want to make sure it's someone's name. It's something you want to get right? Like, you don't want to be that guy. So, pulling the curtain all the way back, we actually had to record with Mo yesterday late in the afternoon. So after the show was over, I said, I'm pretty sure it's Ibrahim. And, in fact, I believe if you go back and listen to us plugging tomorrow's show at the end of the show yesterday, you hear us mention Mohamed Ibrahim is going to be on the show tomorrow. I'm almost certain that's what it is. So then I say, well, let me just triple-check that. And one of the things that I do is I go back and I go to YouTube and I just plug somebody's name in and listen to highlights. So I sent this to Griffin. Yesterday I found a video of I just searched Mohamed Ibrahim, and I found a video of, like, all of his touchdown runs. I said, great. This will give me a bunch of different highlights, and I will be able to confidently know what the answer is. So this was from the Big Ten Network, compiled it, but it's from various different, it's like some of them are from Fox, some of them from ESPN, all of the different broadcasts of Minnesota football. Did you get, I don't know if there's an ad at the front. Did you get through that?
Yeah, I got through the ad.
Okay, all right.
We're
So
good.
Here's what I heard when I did this yesterday, when I participated in this exercise.
As well. They give it to Ibrahim. Touchdown, Gophers. This time he hands it off. Ibrahim, touchdown again, Gophers. On second down, Ibrahim leaping into the end zone for 6.
We don't have to keep going. As you can already hear, multiple different broadcasters, including the great Gus Johnson, who, as you all know, I love referring to him as Mohamed Ibrahim. So all of a sudden I say, oh, I'm the a-hole. I've had it wrong the whole time. His name is Mohamed Ibrahim. God, I feel like a jerk. Well, I know what I'm not going to do is get it wrong during this interview. So I literally took a piece of paper, it's probably in the trash somewhere, and I spelled it out. Him. And I put it in front of me, right over, because I was sitting in Griffin's seat when I recorded the interview yesterday. I put it in front of me to make sure that every time I reset, I got it right. Mohamed Ibrahim. And like a dumbass, forgot to reconfirm before we started the interview. Forgot to say, hey, Mohamed, just wanted to triple check. It's definitely Ibrahim, right? Because I listened to this video, and everyone referred to you as Mohamed Ibrahim. I can't imagine that everyone got it wrong. Sure enough, we do the entire interview, and at the end, I say, hey, you want to plug your Twitter, plug your Instagram? Yeah, follow me at Mo Ibrahim. Son of a bitch! I was very apologetic after we stopped the recording, and he was just awesome. Like he couldn't have been cooler about it. He was great, and what a wonderful interview it was. But as a broadcaster, that's my nightmare. Like that.
Call the guy the wrong name
the
20 minutes straight.
The entire time, despite the fact that I put in the work to try to make sure I got it right, and as it turns out, I was dead wrong. Celebratory in how wrong I was. It was like the guy. Did you see the video of the guy? Oh, can you pull that up? The guy from Philadelphia the other night that lost his mind on NBC Sports Philadelphia about the call at the end of the Super Bowl and literally started cursing like on the air. Oh God, I gotta pull this up. All right, hang on. I'm gonna send you a tweet.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you this tweet. This I don't know anything about this guy. Might be a genius, right? But I want you to play this clip, and I don't know if this is edited or not. Like, hopefully it's not edited. But I don't know if they shared it on social. They might have chosen to edit it because legitimately cursing on air about the call at the end of the game. And this is on NBC Sports Philadelphia's, post-game show immediately after the Super Bowl ends. The same way that, like, when I do the post-game show with Rita, we don't have the game, But the game ends, and the ratings show everybody comes over and listens to us instead of listening to the station that airs the game. I don't know what people in Philadelphia do, whether they watch the Fox post-game presentation or they, too, go over to NBC Sports Philadelphia. But they go there, and they get – this gentleman's name is thank you, Michael Barkan, right, correct, is his name. He's a host on NBC Sports Philadelphia, and he lost his damn mind.
You know, this is a dream that began in July, the end of July 27th, and it was nurtured through the dog days of August and then into September as this team ripped off 8 straight wins. The excitement that we had for this team was palpable, and we saw it as they came from behind to beat Detroit. We saw it as they toughed it out against Minnesota and on through the schedule. We saw it as they withstood the injury of Jalen Hurts, and then to get to a 3rd and 8 on the 15-yard line and an incomplete pass, and Carl Sheffer's team with a call. I mean, utter complete is unbelievable. It's inexcusable. You don't make a call right then and there. You don't let the game be decided by the officiating.
There are other people on the internet that have it uncensored. Maybe if we have families that are listening, perhaps it's better that we had it censored. He did. He said BS twice on the air. And I get it. Like, that's as far as, expletives go. It's a tame expletive, right? Like, it's not nearly as bad as some. But it's still not something you're supposed to say on television. Let me make that abundantly clear. If you are a professional broadcaster, you're still not supposed to do that. And what makes it so hilarious is imagine having that meltdown when you're demonstrably wrong. Like, imagine being so angry about something you're so easily wrong about.
For me, it's Fletcher Cox and Ron Jaworski simultaneously giving that look like, oh, we're going there.
Yeah, right? Like, that's what we're doing. And I get it, like, half of the sports broadcasting anymore is performative, and, like, maybe they said, dude, go ahead, we'll pay the fine. Like, let's get some attention out of it. Who knows any longer? Because the entire world has become professional wrestling, and it's nonsense. But imagine losing your mind over something it's so easily disproven.
Grab is a grab.
It wasn't a bull-esque call. It was the correct call. A lot of people going down the road of trying to compare it to Jimmy Smith at the end of the 2012 Super Bowl, which only says to me that you guys don't understand what the rule is. You're not allowed to just do whatever you want within 5 yards. Do you guys know that? Like, you're not – Charles plays football, so obviously he knows what the rules are. You guys do understand the rule isn't that you're just allowed to, like, shove somebody in the face or do whatever, grab – like, there is not a 5-yard – ollie oxen free, period.
So I would say it's the 5 yards is referee discretion. You got to be doing something within the game of football.
Do you know what the actual rule says? The rule says you have to stay engaged.
Yeah.
If you grab, you have to continue. You are allowed to continue your engagement up to 5 yards. What you can't do is exactly what James Bradbury did, which was grab and release. That's a flag. You can grab and stay engaged, which is, of course, what Jimmy Smith did in the Super Bowl in 2012. Now, the debate about Jimmy Smith is that the contact appeared to continue into the end zone, and the reason why they didn't throw a flag was because they couldn't tell if after 5 yards he would have released had it not been that Michael Crabtree was trying to shove him off. Now, that was a questionable call, right? Like, I can certainly understand why 49ers fans probably have not gotten over it in 10 years. Like, they probably think there was enough there that it could have risen to the point of a foul. But to try to make it seem like it's the same thing as this only says you don't understand what the rules are. The rules are not, you can just do whatever you want within 5 yards. That's not what the rule states. It does state the contact is allowed, but you have to continue the engagement. Once you've gotten locked up within those 5 yards, you have to stay locked up.
That would make sense. He would have to, if he's going to put his hands on him, turn up the field with him.
Correct.
That shows to the referee you are not out of position.
Yes,
if you
are
grab
still
and
you're
release,
actively
you are
defending.
now out of position.
Thank you. That's the best. You said it even better than I could.
Yeah.
He got beat and grabbed because he was beat. When you are actively defending someone, you can do that physically within 5 yards. James Bradberry was not actively defending Juju Smith-Schuster. He was beat.
Yeah, like you said, it's the difference between being beat and
Correct.
trying to be aggressive.
Exactly.
Make a play.
It's the exact reason why the rule is written the way that it was. Imagine losing your mind, cursing on air. And I don't know if this guy's going to get in trouble for it or not. The fact that NBC Sports Philadelphia went ahead and shared it themselves suggests that he probably won't get in trouble for it, because if it was something they were worried about, 10 years ago you would have gotten fired. Like 10 years ago, this would have maybe not 10, 15 years ago. There was a time in the history of television where doing something like this would have lost you would have lost your job over it. But not any longer, because I guess nothing matters in the world. I don't know. But imagine just losing your mind like this over something that you're just wrong about. Plain and simple, you're wrong. I don't know how I got here. How did I get here? Where did this start? Oh, I was demonstrably. I was talking about Mohamed. I was demonstrably wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I was celebratory wrong. Yeah, man. Oh God, that was embarrassing. All right, continuing to get a bunch of back and forth about Todd Monken. Apparently, there are reports now coming in that Todd Monken also was offered the Tampa job again. He was offered the opportunity to return.
Yeah, Albert Breer.
Albert Breer reported that, and he chose Baltimore over Tampa. And, like, again, if you're trying to use this to ease your mind, like, well, that means he must have known Lamar Jackson was going to be here.
Or he'd rather take Huntley over.
You keep coming back to Huntley.
Look, man,
you're so convinced that Huntley's going to be.
I think that's what they told Cliff Kingsbury when he
QBs?
asked that question. It was like, well, we got a Pro Bowler in the building.
Yeah,
How many QBs have thrown 4 touchdowns in the Pro Bowl?
Great point. I don't know who would possibly know the answer to that.
I believe it's
question.
only Tyler.
If you say so. I mean,
guys typically only play a half. So
I don't know what that suggests that I know anything about the history of the Pro Bowl. There's one thing in the history of the Pro Bowl that I know. It's the same thing everybody else does, that Sean Taylor knocked a guy out on the sideline. That's literally the only thing in the history of the Pro Bowl that anyone knows at all. I bring it up to say, even if
Mark Bulger threw 4 in 2004.
Another famed former Raven. It's just nothing but Ravens that are on that list. What I would say is, if Todd Monken said, hey, is it a certainty that Lamar Jackson is going to be here? And the Ravens said, well, we're planning on it, but, we can't guarantee it. If that was their answer, and Todd Monken's, is weighing that versus Tampa, where they also don't know at all who the quarterback is going to be, I would still think that Baltimore will be the more desirable job, because there's more stability within the organization, right? There's just more stability from top down in Tampa. Tampa was a dumpster fire until Tom Brady showed up. And there's every reason to think they could go right back to being a dumpster fire. I mean, they still have talent on the roster.
If you remember, before they had Tom Brady, and the timeline fits, Monken was their offensive coordinator then. Their offense was on fire. It was a year of Jameis Winston, 30 picks, 30
interceptions.
30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns.
Right.
And when you go to the Cleveland years, that's the year Baker Mayfield kind of lit his match a little bit to give people thinking like, oh, can he be a starting quarterback?
Be the guy, right.
So he does win where he goes.
Well, you say win. He's
productive where he goes, and if you give him the
correct.
pieces, he will win.
There's arguments for that. There's no doubt about it. But as far as whether or not him choosing Baltimore over Tampa means definitively that he was given an assurance that Lamar Jackson was definitely going to be here, like if he had I'm trying to think of an example. Where was somewhere where they were hiring a coordinator this year that had a stable quarterback situation? I don't even know. Oh, the Chargers. The Chargers,
the
right?
Chargers. That was the desirable.
So if we had reported, or if there had been a report that Todd Monken was offered the Chargers and the Ravens and chose the Ravens, then 1,000% immediately on this show I would say that makes me feel very strongly that Todd Monken knew or was given an assurance that Lamar Jackson was going to be here. Because if you've got the option of working with Justin Herbert or coming to Baltimore and not knowing, I think 10 times out of 10, some people might still say they would go to, L.A. and work with Justin Herbert because, Justin Herbert's amazing. But there's no way that you're making that choice unless you know definitively that Lamar Jackson's the guy. The options being Baltimore or Tampa, maybe he knows something, but it's also just quite possible that Tampa's not a desirable place to be from top down. He knows that from his previous stint there and says, I don't really care who the quarterback ends up being in Baltimore, it's still better for me than going to an unknown quarterback and a rough situation in Tampa. Again, all of this is speculative. I'm acknowledging that. We're having a speculative morning here on GCR, which is not what I like to do, but we can only operate with what we have. The only thing we know definitively, Todd Monken is the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, and it will be interesting to see schematically, and we'll do more about that in the next couple of days, what that means, what the Ravens will end up trying to do, and what was their goal. Did they want to hire the system or the coach and accept a system? Like, that, to me, is the other part of this. Were they looking for someone that was going to fit what they wanted to do, or looking for someone and they were willing to be, malleable towards whatever it was that they wanted to bring with them? These are things we can't have answers for. Presumably they will have a press conference this week. They might have even already announced it, and I just haven't checked my email about when they're going to introduce Todd Monken and allow him to answer some of those questions. All right, winding down for a Tuesday edition of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. We'll come back in, get a tidbit and two-bit, or wind things down. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at over $60,000 and over $64,000 for lateral officers, with $10,000 signing bonuses available. Plus, cadets start at over $32,000. Great benefits are available, like medical, dental, and vision insurance, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days per calendar year with no limit, career advancement to more than 20 specialized units, and more, with further incentives for military service members and veterans. A passion for service, a career for life with the Baltimore County Police Department. Find out more at joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. Must be a United States citizen, have a valid driver's license, and a high school diploma or GED equivalent.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now, and it's our annual Best Of issue. On the cover, we recognize Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman as our 2022 Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, and he sits down with us to discuss how his arrival in Baltimore was simultaneous with the Birds' turnaround. Also inside, we recognize the top people, performances, and moments of the year throughout the local sports scene. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
There's something for everyone this February at Laurel Park. Come watch live horse racing every Friday through Sunday and join us on Saturday, February 18th for the Winter Stakes Spectacular, featuring 6 stakes races and $900,000 in purses, including the General George and Barbara Fritchie Stakes. The fun doesn't stop there. Stick around for our Winter Mardi Gras celebration with live music, delicious food and drinks, and a carnival atmosphere. Plus, don't miss out on President's Day holiday racing on Monday, February 20th. Visit laurelpark.com for more info. That's laurelpark.com for more. See you at the track.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows that the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Kahn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
All right, as we are winding down for a Tuesday edition of the program, again, lots of great offers. I know the Super Bowl is past us, football season's over, but tons of huge events to bet on. You can bet the over in the NBA All-Star Game this weekend. You can bet the Daytona 500. You can bet daily NBA, NHL, college basketball Even college lacrosse. Bet $5. Get $200 in instant bonus bets when you go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers and sign up with DraftKings. This is your chance to have fun and make a few bucks betting on your favorite college lacrosse teams. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Click on the DraftKings logo and that link to get your $200 in bonus bets. Griffin, you were trying to explain to me something that happened on Instagram today with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, so apparently he took to Instagram,
This
and
is within
yeah, like
the time-wise would line up that it was after the
couple minutes after the Todd Monken announcements, and so he posted to his Instagram story a song from NLE Choppa, I think, first, and then and that one's still up there.
Okay.
And then after the announcement,
But did we read anything into that song, or is it just a song?
I haven't looked into the lyrics yet, but
okay.
I can research that
need you to
later.
really dissect that
promise
and get
I
it
will.
to the bottom
Yes.
of that, right?
Just because it's possible he might have heard
Cody
the
messages,
ahead.
right?
Yeah,
yes,
but then once it
exactly.
was announced publicly, then he did another black screenshot, and in very small writing on the bottom right, it said, "I guess today." Hold on, let me make sure I pull it back up.
Yeah, let's not miss this, right?
So it's Trick or Treat Day ? And then he deleted it like 5 minutes later.
Absolutely zero idea what that means. Like zero idea what that would mean.
Do you think it means he loves Todd Monken?
Who knows? I mean, what does "It's Trick or Treat Day" mean? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad? People like Halloween.
So,
like
maybe like.
But it's also spooky season,
Yeah.
right? Like, who the hell knows what that means?
Means Todd Monken's got a lot of tricks in his playbook, maybe.
Or is it completely unrelated and somebody got to him and said, "Hey, everybody thinks this has something to do with the new offensive coordinator, so maybe just take it down so we don't have to deal with it," right? Like who the F knows? It'd be one thing if he had gone on there and said, "I hate the OC hire," and deleted it. We could be like, okay, I'm pretty sure we have an answer there. Or who knows what that means? It's Trick or Treat Day. What? Is there something? Y'all are young.
Or it's really treat. Or it's a big treat.
That's what I'm saying. Like, is there something you can tell me? Do people describe? Do they use the phrase Trick or Treat Day to describe something they love or they hate? Is there a thing there?
I'm Urban Dictionary.
Okay.
Looking it up right now.
Wait, you got anything?
I got something that could lead to something. Term originated in the South. To trick or treat, it's to spoil and spend money on a female, whether it's taking her out for dinner, taking her shopping, or anything else of that sort.
I mean, in fairness, today is Valentine's Day, so
that's what I'm thinking. Is he alluded to? Splurging and treating a lady, maybe getting paid and then splurging.
Yeah,
or we're splurging in an offensive coordinator.
But it's also possible it has nothing to do with the offensive coordinator. It's about exactly what Charles is saying, which is it's about his lady.
Yeah,
because it's Valentine's Day. I hate that. I hate that this is what we're spending time dissecting, but this is the way that the world works now. Lamar posted something on Instagram and then took it down, so we're trying to get to the bottom of it. We'll put our team of investigators
biggest story
on
in this city.
Yeah, we'll get right on that for the rest of the day. Oh, for God's sakes. I did get the question from, by the way, some good feedback on your Tom Brady photo. John Proctor he realizes not happy that your phone covers your mustache.
Well, it's gone, so.
Our friend Sue from Live Casino appears to be a fan. That's hey, there you go.
Okay.
Sai says you look like Juan Epstein. That's pretty good.
Who is Juan Epstein?
Okay, so hang on. Let me pull up Juan Epstein. Hang on a second. Juan Epstein. Let me pull up.
Juan Epstein
was from Welcome Back, Kotter.
Oh.
And
oh man,
you know what? Not wrong. That's pretty good.
Yeah, this was the thing. This was the thing. Because I'm getting a haircut later this week, and that was the thing I was worried about. I was like,
oh, you wanted to look.
I didn't want my hair
fresh.
to. Yeah, I didn't want my
Right.
hair
You
to
wanted
be
look
like
clean.
all poofy and stuff.
Joe wants to know. It's so funny because my buddy Brandon, who I'm spending my Valentine's Day with, by the way, we're going to see Our Lady Peace tonight because we are dad rockers. That's what we do.
Nice.
It's a '90s band. You have no idea. It's fun.
Sounds
I'm not even
nice.
mad about it. It's pretty niche, but like we're big fans. And I already took Mrs. Clark out for Valentine's Day over the weekend. We went I got a nice piece of meat at a meat house this weekend.
The meat house.
Lovely. Yeah, we went to the meat house. I mean, they don't spend any money, so I'm not going to plug them. But we went to the meat store and we got ourselves a big old hunk of meat.
Nice.
And had a lovely dinner. It was very nice.
Like some meat.
I had some prime rib at the meat house.
Nice.
That was, I believe, she got the filet. That was the play. We got a little broccolini on the side. It was a lovely, lovely, very expensive dinner for Valentine's Day. I hope she enjoyed it.
The Baltimore Meat House.
At the Baltimore Meat House. That was where we went. So anyway, Brandon and I were talking about this as well. Joe said, it's weird. Why do you think the Orioles didn't have a press conference to announce Bruce Springsteen like the Ravens did for Billy Joel? And it's so funny because my buddy Brandon and I said, well, I think we know the answer. The last press conference was an unmitigated disaster. You going to turn around and have John Angelos available again? I mean,
only answering questions about Bruce Springsteen.
Right? I mean, come on, dude.
You're gonna ask me questions about.
Who knows? Maybe they I don't know if they were planning on it before or not. I have no idea if we had on January 1st.
I think it would have been great if you had a press conference and Dan Connolly asked about.
No, they did it on
ownership.
Valentine's Day, and he said it's not appropriate. Today's Valentine's Day.
It's Valentine's Bruce Springsteen Day.
We're not going to talk about anything besides. I think we know why they didn't do a press conference. It's because the last one went very poorly. And they just said, maybe we just announce this one. Maybe we don't bother with the pomp and circumstance of a full press conference this time around. All right, let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you by the print issue of Press Box. Final days for the best of issue with our Mo Gabba Sports Person of the Year, Adley Rutschman, on the cover. Go get it right now for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms before it's gone later this week in favor of a new one with Gunnar Henderson on the cover.
All right, there have been, so Sunday night was the 6th meeting between the first and second team All-Pro QBs in the Super Bowl.
How about that?
Yeah. Do you think you could name
Tom Brady and Peyton Manning?
Tom Brady and Peyton Manning
They
not
could not have met in the
Super
Super Bowl. They
yeah.
obviously could not. Well, I mean, they would never.
But they are both on this list. Separate years.
So Tom Brady and I got to go over all the quarterbacks.
Yeah, Tom Brady's
Brady.
only on
Tom
here
Brady
once.
and Matt Ryan.
Yep, 2016. Well
yeah,
done.
I was like, I don't think it would be Eli.
Yeah, Tom Brady and Matt Ryan. So
then Peyton with Rex. No,
No,
it was
Peyton and Drew
yeah,
Brees.
Drew Brees.
Yes,
Okay.
Peyton and Drew Brees in 2009.
Yeah, I was like, no way.
Yeah, right. Well, it could have been Cam Newton, but Peyton Manning was definitely not an
Yeah,
All-Pro quarterback that year. He was awful. Okay, Tom Brady and Matt Ryan, and then Peyton Manning and Drew Brees. Okay, how about Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger?
No. Everyone else, the other 3 years before 2000.
Before. Okay. Well, we could be here forever then trying to get these. All right, hang on. Let me. There's a Joe. I'm guessing there's a Joe Montana on the list.
There is. There's two Joe Montanas.
Montana and I can't even remember the Bengals quarterback that year.
No, Ken Anderson.
Ken Anderson.
Ken
Anderson.
Anderson. This was the first since the merger is when we have is when I have data from. Ken Anderson, 1981, and Joe Montana is the first year. We had the first and second team.
So everything else is between 80 and 2000.
Correct.
So are there any more Joe Montanas?
There's one more Joe Montana.
Joe Montana and it wouldn't have been the year they played New England.
No.
Joe Montana and
I'm not even gonna try.
Right division though.
Right division.
Well,
Joe Montana and
I don't know what the divisions were back then.
Joe Montana and Dan Marino.
Dan Marino in 1984.
I should have thought of that.
Montana and Marino. One
And then
more.
The last one, I'm gonna. Kurt Warner and McNair.
No, not Kurt
Ooh,
Warner.
that's a
McNair.
good
Yeah,
one.
it is a good
That is a good one. Although wasn't that technically 2000?
Okay.
The game was played in 2000. I don't know when. I guess I'm not sure when they're counting the years. 2016. I think it would. I think it would have counted.
Part of it?
Aikman is not part of it.
He played a
Steve
bunch of bad
Young.
quarterbacks.
Not Steve
Part of it.
Young.
Brett Favre.
Not Brett Favre.
Hey.
Warmer,
Elway?
though. Not John Elway.
Jim Kelly was part of it.
Jim Kelly was part of it.
It wasn't Aikman, so then it means it was Mark Rippon.
Mark Rippon in 1991 between the Washington football team and Jim Kelly.
There you go.
That was their last good year.
Yes, it was. Very well. I mean, they were kind of okay for a little bit with Robert Griffin III.
It's all right. They're sitting there with Dallas, though.
And they might have Greg Roman, so they've got that
Michael
going
Parsons
for
is recruiting a Calais Campbell to Dallas.
Hey, get the F out of here with all that. Calais, come back to
I think Greg Roman to Washington signed and sealed. It seems
Signed
like,
and sealed, you say?
Because it seems like Rivera is the type of guy you need to fit in his system, and Rivera knows he's on the hot seat, so he's going to hire somebody who's not likely to take his position. They could make
Interesting.
Greg Roman an interim
Interesting.
after they get rid of Rivera, but
Interesting.
he's not going to become the head coach.
I get it.
So where's Benjamin goes to what, Tampa, or like who else is out there?
Or he just stays in
or he
Kansas
stays in
City and
Kansas
says, "Look, man, if I'm not going to get the head coach gig,
Wait
it's
for Andy
way
Reid.
worse things to be than hanging out with Patrick Mahomes." It's again, as we try to speculate what happened, why the Ravens waited this long to hire Todd Monken, it might very well be that Eric Bieniemy just sort of said, "I don't actually want to leave. Like I'm listening, but it's not. I've got Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Like if there's any risk of me not getting a head coaching job, this ain't a bad place to be." Hey, gambling can be fun, but you should set a limit and stay within it. Remember that if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Tonight, Totally Tubular, Carolina Hopkins lacrosse, 5 o'clock from Homewood Field on ESPNU. Big Ten hoops tonight on ESPNU. Illinois Penn State at 7 on ESPN2. Michigan, Wisconsin at 9 on Big Ten Network. Nebraska, Rutgers at 8. The rest of the college basketball, find at glennclarkradio.com. NBC Sports Washington, Hurricanes Capitals at 7, Wizards Blazers at 10, TNT Celtics Bucks 7:30, Warriors Clippers at 10, ESPN Plus and Hulu Panthers Blues at 8. Paramount Plus Champions League returns today. AC Milan, Tottenham Hotspur at 3, as well as Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich at 3 as well. The USA Network for WWE, NXT tonight at 8. Non-sports.
Really just about nothing. Paul Rudd's going to be on Seth Meyers.
Did you see the video of the interview of Paul Rudd and his son on the field after the Super Bowl on Sunday? And Paul Rudd's son legitimately looks older than he does.
Does he really? I did not see this video.
I mean, I don't know if Paul Rudd's son does anything besides just being
He was
Paul
on
Rudd's son.
the new episode of Impractical Jokers last week.
That's not
Guest-
something
guest
that I would-
appearance.
that-
Brett Michaels was on, and then he just. And
Why
Paul
are
just
you
showed
pretending like I should care? Why? Are
Because
you
Impractical Jokers is an incredible show.
God, you are trying to sell Impractical. You have been trying to put over Impractical Jokers for forever on this show. I had the one guy on the show once, and he was
Which one?
lovely.
Joe Q.
Murr.
Oh, Murr.
I had Murr on the program
Worst
once.
one.
And he was a lovely gentleman. I just couldn't pretend like I had ever watched or cared about his show. Like I just couldn't.
That was
do
probably
it.
awesome.
I can't tell if Jack Rudd is some sort of
Jack Rudd
aspiring actor himself or whatever it is. But you
Is Paul Rudd wearing a Tyreek Hill jersey? It's a number 10. I can't.
It's got to be Pacheco,
Oh, it's
right?
Pacheco. It's Pacheco.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Because
Paul Rudd does look like
all
a
that
high
Joe
school kid.
Flacco
Apparently
controversy about his son.
Paul. Oh, that's right. Wearing the
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill. Paul Rudd's son is 17 years old, and I'm telling you, go back and watch.
I mean,
the
they look like
interview.
the same age, yeah.
Same age. He looks older. It's insanity. Interview he did with Peter Schrager.
The only
after
other
the Super
thing,
Bowl.
I guess, with Valentine's Day, it's Planet Sex with Cara Delevingne series on Hulu.
I
where she's
never.
gonna
I,
talk
I do.
about
I
her
do
sexuality,
enjoy
other people's sexuality.
Look, man, I
Big
enjoy.
sex show.
I'm a fan of Cara Delevingne. All in.
She shoots a porno. Apparently, it's kind of documenting that. Yeah, in
she
the show.
is the
Yeah,
director.
yeah, she's directing it.
It's a big
Yeah,
difference.
Sorry.
Like what?
She's directing.
Okay,
yeah.
that's a much different scenario. Jesus Christ. I try to get my wife to commit to going to see Ant-Man on Friday night because it's the one thing that we can agree on is going to superhero movies. And she's just like, I mean, we're just that age now. Where she's like, we gotta get a sitter. It's a Friday. I'm gonna work until 5. I don't really, and I'm busy on Saturday. I've got a couple of games that I'm doing on Saturday, so I don't really want to do Saturday night. And I'm just realizing we're gonna end up not seeing it. And I gotta wake up. We can't go Sunday because I'm waking up early to do 105.7 on Monday morning.
Do
so
what's the earliest showing they have? I guess
when
they do like a
on
10
what
a.m.
day?
10 a.m. Sunday or something.
I gotta do my normal show on 105.7 on
That's
Sunday.
at 1, right?
Yeah, but have you ever watched one of these movies? They're not done by 1.
If it starts, the movie starts at 10.
No,
It's going to start at 10:30.
Correct, because they do
10:35.
30 minutes worth of trailers ahead of time, and
There's a theater that I like.
then you got to stick around and watch the post credit scenes.
Since I live really close to PA, there's a theater in Hanover.
Yeah.
And they show 5 minutes of previews. It's the best. It's the best.
I mean, I actually like the previews. It's part of going to the movies that I enjoy, but
I like the movie
I
starts
bake
on
it in.
time,
I bake it into what I'm
and
expecting.
it's the cheapest tickets I've ever
Well, good for
gotten
them.
tickets.
Good for them. But I just already see it coming. I'm not going to see it this weekend. We want to. It's not going to happen because we're just that age. It's the way it's going to go. All right, thanks today to Mohamed Ibrahim. Thanks also to Tony Pauline, Pro Football Network, Patrick Stevens. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. We will talk Todd Monken on tomorrow's show. We will, whoever it is, we will talk Todd Monken on tomorrow's show. Rob Vaughn, Maryland baseball coach, is going to join us. Their season gets underway this weekend with lofty expectations, and I imagine Drew will probably stop by, stuffing things as well. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, the Baltimore County Police Department, Problem Gambling, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Maryland Jockey Club, Great 8's Memorabilia, Maryland Vascular Specialist, your local Toyota, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Best. Thanks to Charles at Charles_AP28.
Charles.AP28.
.AP28. Close enough. On Instagram. Give him a follow there. All right, follow us at Glenn Clark Radio, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Have a great Tuesday evening. Go Hopkins Lacrosse. Duke sucks.